Item 1.01 is a Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all stand, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. Item 1.02, order and approval agenda.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item 1.03, input from the public. I have 3 items here that I'm going to bring up. I'll go ahead and read through the, this will apply to all sections, so I'll just read this once right now. But what we're going to do is I have 3 items that are just general public comment. We're going to bring those on now. Anything else that's tied to an agenda item, we're going to bring those in with that agenda item. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested not to raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. Comments are limited to 3 consecutive minutes. The speaker's time may not be reserved, divided, apportioned, or deferred. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been included specifically on an agenda as an item upon which action will be taken. I have, let's bring up Brian Lee. Could please state your name for the record? You have the 3 minutes. And then, yeah, push it so it lights up there.
There we go. Thank you. I'm Brian Lee. Thank you to the Honorable President Durham and the honorable members of the Elko County Board of Trustees. I am the Executive Director of the Nevada State Education Association, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Elko Classroom Teachers Association, or ECTA, and the Elko County Support Staff Organization, 2 proud affiliates of NSEA. First of all, allow me to thank you for withdrawing the consideration of declaring a physical emergency from the agenda. After receiving notice, NSEA, of this possible declaration, NSEA began a thorough review of the school district's budget and finances and discovered that the district does not meet the legal requirements to declare such an emergency. After conveying this information to the district, we were informed that no other further action would be taken at this time, and we'd like to thank your legal counsel for quick action on their part. This is not to take away from the serious financial stress that the district is currently under, and because of a lack of funding from the state. As you are probably well aware, we received $2 statewide. There was a $2 increase per pupil, and that is hardly keeping up with inflation and the costs of doing business among all of our school districts in our 17 counties. We know that difficult decisions will have to be made, and we hope that the partnership that we have traditionally enjoyed with the Elko County School District continues, and that we continue to have open communication. NSEA and our local affiliates have partnered with the district in the past legislative sessions to try to seek as much funding and adequate funding for our students throughout the state, and we will continue to do so. We commit to again today to partner with you in the 2027 legislative session to secure sufficient funding to ensure that every Nevada student has access to an exceptional public education. I thank you again, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Cheryl Kilgore.
Good evening, and thank you for listening to me. So I found this.
Is your mic on?
It is now.
There we go. If you could just state your name for the record.
Hi, Cheryl Kilgore. And I saw this, and it actually made me very upset. It says Nevada lawmakers approved $700 million in education funds, including teacher bonuses. But why did it go just to CCSD and not to us? And so I'm sure you're aware of it, or maybe you're not.
Ms. Kilgore, we won't be able to discuss this.
Okay.
It's statement only. You can make a statement. That's all. We're not here to answer questions.
I just saw where it said, rebuttal, so I was looking
It's
for an
public
answer.
comment. So
Gotcha.
you're welcome to comment.
You can tell it's my first time.
You're fine. Thank you.
But
Continue.
I'm wishing that we get that too, because we're in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Moss.
Hi, I'm Katie Moss. I'm hoping my voice makes it through it. If not, maybe Matt, would you finish reading my speech if I can't make it through? Okay. Members of the school board, I'm standing here tonight not just as a parent, but as someone who believes deeply in the promise of our children and the power of this community to shape their future. When we talk about education, we often talk about curriculum, budgets, policy, and test scores. Those things matter, but there is one factor that research, experience, and common sense all agree on. When parents are involved, children succeed. A child who knows their parents are engaged in their education walks into school differently. They walk into school differently. They carry confidence. They feel supported. They understand that learning matters not just in a classroom, but in their home and at their dinner table and in their daily life. But parents' involvement doesn't happen automatically. It requires partnership. It requires the school to welcome parents, communicate openly, and treat families as allies, not as visitors. Parents are not outsiders to education. We are not obstacles, and we are not occasional volunteers. We are the first teachers of our children that they have ever had. We are the ones who teach them their first words, answer their endless questions, and remind them to keep trying when things feel hard. By the time By the time a child enters kindergarten, thousands of hours of learning have already happened at home. Imagine the power of the school system that truly partners with that foundation. Imagine the classroom where teachers and parents work as a team. Imagine schools where families feel invited, respected, and heard. Imagine students who see adults in their lives united around one goal, their success. That kind of partnership just doesn't improve grades. It builds stronger children, it builds stronger schools, and ultimately, it builds a stronger community. Tonight, I'm asking the board to continue to strengthen the bridge between schools and families. Invest in communication. Create opportunities for parents to participate. Make every family feel that they belong in the conversation about their child's education. Because the truth is simple. When schools and parents stand on opposite sides, children are caught in the middle. But when schools and parents stand together, children rise higher than any system ever could lift them alone. Our children are watching us. They're learning from how we work together. Let's show them what partnership looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment for anything that is not an agendized item?
I wouldn't mind making a comment, just very quickly.
Sure.
I'm not on there. Is that okay?
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Same rules apply. Please introduce yourself and it's up to 3 minutes.
My name is Claire Hansen. I am a teacher at Flagview. And I just want to make a comment here on the record. And I'm sorry for a critique. I just don't feel that consideration is being fully given to us here at Flagview, especially given, and I'm sorry, Dr. Byers, I feel that you have been on your phone a lot. And I apologize. It has been every meeting that I have attended, and it is slightly upsetting. That's my public comment. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Come.
My name is Amber Taylor, and I'm currently a substitute. I moved from Utah as a licensed educator. Right now I'm subbing because I had to take the time for my license transfer. As a substitute, we step in and we back up the teachers when teachers are out. Sometimes people are just warm body, but a lot of times we're not. And the fact that we as substitutes have been hit with a pretty decent pay cut when there's already not enough teacher substitutes and you're already trying to pull teachers from their teacher positions when there's not a substitute there and when the teacher is supposed to be able to have their time to prepare for their lessons, to make their lessons more quality, to allow them to have the time that they have with their family instead of taking work home every single night, because that's what we do as educators. It's kind of concerning. Is there not a better place that we can pull from? Some of these teachers that are on long-term substitutes are filling drastic positions that are only vacant because there's not people coming in from other states to fill those positions. And then they got hit just as bad as if they were, a third of their paycheck got taken. And they're filling positions that a teacher would normally fill with already a lowered salary to begin with. So is there, I'm just wondering if there's not a better place that we can pull funds from. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment not associated to an agenda item? All right, moving on. I'm going to take pleasure of the chair here and move we're flexible agenda. We're going to address item 2.04 first. That's review, discussion, and possible action regarding declaration of a financial emergency for the purposes of reopening union negotiations. Mr. Anderson, you have a statement on that?
Yes, thank you. As our first public comment indicated, I will just affirm that. Based on the desire for this to be on an agenda, we found it on an agenda. However, I will confirm what Mr. Lee shared earlier, and that according to the recommendation of our legal counsel, that we do not currently qualify for the conditions required to meet a fiscal emergency, and so just recommending that we take no action on this and that we end it there.
All right, thank you. Does the board have anything further on this? All right, then we will move on back to item 2.01, receipt, review, and possible approval of the Elko County School District Single Audit Report for possible action. Let's see, and Terry Gage?
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. For the record, my name is Terry Gage. I'm an assurance partner with Eide Bailey, and I'm here to present the single audit for the year ended June 30th, 2025. I put two documents in front of you. One is the bound audit report, and the other one is a letter, I don't know, a 5-10 page letter. The good news is we've already went through 95% of this audit report. It's your December meeting, and we're only going to be reviewing the single audit portion of that this evening. Back in December, I had reported to everybody the single audit was later than your financial statement audit this last fiscal year due to the federal government releasing the compliance supplement for 2025 in November, which was after your financial statement audit was due. So therefore, we had to separate the single audit versus the financial statement audit. So that's why I'm here twice. So this will be very, very short. We're just going to go over a few items. We're going to, in the bound audit report, we're going to turn all the way to page 83. Most of the elements that are in the letter that's attached, we've already went through back in December. And as we go through the single audit, we're going through those remaining elements in the letter. So I won't be reviewing that individually. So at the bottom of page 83, this is your schedule of expenditure of federal awards. So the school district received and spent about $10.2 million in federal funds this past year. That's down from about $16 million in the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. And most of that is a lot of the COVID funds went away in this last fiscal year. You received state and fiscal local recovery funds at about $2 million less than the previous fiscal year. Your youth activity funds, I think they call it WIOA, was down about $1 million. Child nutrition cluster down about $745,000. COVID education stabilization was down about $772,000, and impact aid was down about $1 million. So that's the biggest change from between the fiscal years. So now we're going to go to page 85. So as part of the audit process, when you have federal funds, that exceeds $750,000, we have what we call a single audit, where we go in and we pick different grant programs and we test for compliance with their program requirements. This past fiscal year, we audited 3 major programs that were subject to the single audit. The first one was Title I grants to local educational agencies. Second one was your child nutrition cluster. And the last one was your state and fiscal local recovery funds that you receive under COVID. So as we go through that audit process, we test different compliance requirements for the grants. So beginning on page 89, we did have 4 findings in relation to those grants. I think the good news is we had no material weaknesses. Even though there were findings, they were all deemed to be significant deficiencies. So not at a level that was deemed material, and most of them were control related, where you just kind of have to tweak your control system to make sure that you can cover these items. So at the bottom of page 89 is your first finding relating to the single audit. It was relating to your Title I funds regarding eligibility. And when we went through our testing, we noted that local educational agencies are required to equitably allocate Part A funds to each participating school in rank order on the basis of the number of public school children from low-income families residing in the area. So we noted that there was an amended allocation of $6,228 that was not equitably distributed across the 11 eligible Title I schools. In addition, there were $32,000 in funds that were not properly dispersed in accordance with that allocation. So insignificant compared to your millions of dollars you receive in Title I, but still reported as a significant deficiency. The bottom of page 90 was your second finding relating to Title I, once again, and this was relating to level of effort. So level of effort, when you receive funds, you're required to spend at least 90% of your prior year funds. So you have to test for level of effort and to make sure that you've met those spending requirements. And we noted that there was no supporting documentation maintained to prove that you met those level of effort spending requirements. We went through and we redetermined what that level of effort was. We found that you had met that requirement. You just didn't maintain the documentation for us to prove that. So once again, written up as a significant deficiency. And I believe now staff are maintaining those requirements. I believe it was felt that the state was maintaining those. So just kind of a miscommunication there. And now the school district's maintaining that documentation. Third one is on page 91. This was also relating to Title I. And this was under special tests and provisions. And the district is required to report graduation rate data for all public high schools for the district for each graduating cohort. A graduating cohort is, they add up the number of kids that start 9th grade, and you're part of that graduating cohort, that unit. And we noted in 68 of the 617 people that were part of that cohort, they were removed from that cohort for different reasons, and there was no documentation maintained to show why they were removed. So for example, if they moved out of the area, just different reasons leaving school.
Ms. Gage, sorry,
Yes.
just to confirm, the sample size was 68?
Our
and only
samples, I'm sorry, and
18 were?
68 removals out of 617 were selected. I'm sorry, and 17 of those 68. Sorry,
you.
17 of those 68 were, did not have the approval of the documentation. Thanks, Matt, for that. Very last one on the bottom of page 92 was relating to the child nutrition cluster and state and local fiscal recovery funds. And this is relating to procurement. And we noted that for the fresh fruit and vegetable program, that you had 2 vendors that had purchases over $10,000, and no documentation was maintained regarding rate quotations. And if I remember correctly, and Cassie, you might correct me if I'm wrong, this was a prior year finding, and I think you corrected it mid-year. And that it just was too late in the year to get it corrected before the next audit cycle. And then in the state and fiscal local recovery funds, we had a sample of 4 transactions out of 20 where it was missing certain contract provisions that were required. So once again, that's probably a common one. I see that a lot where you just don't include all of those provisions that the federal government requires. So that was your very last significant deficiency. That is all I have that was relating to the single audit. A lot of time and effort goes into this audit report. We certainly thank the school district and all of the staff and all of their hard work that goes into being able to put on this audit. So I'm more than happy to entertain any questions that anybody has. Short and sweet, told you.
Any questions from the board?
Ms. Gage, very
Yes.
quickly, at the bottom of 85,
Uh-huh.
it says auditee qualified as a low-risk auditee, and we are no. Is that because of the amount of money, or is that because of some other issue that makes us not a low risk?
There's certain requirements in order to qualify as a low-risk auditee, and one of those is you cannot have any material weaknesses. And in June 30th, 2024, you had material weaknesses as part of your audit process, so that automatically disqualifies you as a low-risk auditee. And the difference between a high risk and a low risk, you're either testing 40% or 60% of federal funds. But a lot of times, one material weakness disqualifies you automatically. So the majority of our audit clients very rarely are not a low-risk auditee.
Thank you.
So that's normal. Good question.
Is there anything else that that would also contribute to that of being low risk or high risk, or is it
You look
specifically
at-
just that?
There's certain factors that go into it. You look at the type of opinion. For example, if you have a qualified opinion, you look at number of material weaknesses. You look at if your data collection form was filed late, and you have to meet all of those factors to meet either a high risk or a low risk auditee. Most of the clients, what throws them out being a low risk is if they have a material weakness, you're automatically high risk. And like I say, very, very common.
And this one does not have material weaknesses.
You did not have a material weakness in relation to the single audit, but your financial statement audit, you did have material weaknesses that we went over with in December. Good question.
Anything else, board? All right, thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, move to accept the single audit.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the audit. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
All right, we're at 2.02, receipt, review, and discussion regarding superintendent recommendations for a plan to address budget concerns. It's a non-action item. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Oh, that was a little closer. Let's see. RJ, if you're listening, if you could get the presentation, or I guess, yeah, we need it up, but I'll control it. Thank you. Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to give another update on how we're progressing with the task of identifying areas to address budget issues. So the first slide here is, I mentioned last week that this will be a pretty standard slide going forward until hopefully we have green check marks everywhere. So the ones with green check marks are completed or actions have been taken for those items. And to remind people that when it comes to these decisions, some of these do rest on the board, and we will likely from here into the foreseeable future see at least one of these items at ongoing board meetings to make sure that we're continually addressing as the rest of this school year goes on. So we'll get updates on all the things that are not green check marked to a varying extent throughout the rest of this. The Chromebook expenditures, this is a comment that we've got a lot, not only from board members, from a lot of the letters and emails and things we get from people. that they feel like this is an area where money can definitely be saved. And the last time we were here, there's one edit really to this slide that wasn't there before. Trustee McCarty requested to have a figure for what would happen if instead of going one Chromebook cart for every 3 classes at the elementary level, what if it was 2? And what would that, or sorry, 1 set for every 2 classes. So that difference is there. Instead of $160,000 per year for 5 years, it would save about $100,000 per year for 5 years. So that's the update there. We typically, we're also talking about how what's been done in the past in order to kind of accelerate the preparation process for the year. Is sometimes we would get the order going in the spring and then pay for it out of the next fiscal year. And so we're also not going to do that this time around. We probably won't be looking at anything for Chromebooks until later in the next fiscal year to be able to properly evaluate how we're doing with extras, because with Chromebooks, you can't just say we have, for one-to-one and you say we have 9,200 students, you don't have 9,200 Chromebooks, because at any given point, there are hundreds of those out for repair or sent back for warranty. And so we've tried to maintain an acceptable number of spares to be able to put in people's hands while the ones that need to be fixed are elsewhere, being either repaired by our own people or sent out to warranty that goes with our Chromebook purchases. So we're gonna look at that as well and see where we are with those extras and how many are truly needed, depending on if we do the 2 or 3. But there's those numbers. I should have said too, at that first slide that showed the 2 columns, I think there was a misunderstanding last time around that maybe not all of those were definitely recommendations or proposals. If it's to avoid that either inadvertent misperception or otherly motivated misperception, everything that is in this presentation is a proposal, and everything that is not in this presentation is not a proposal from Mr. Anderson. The textbook adoption transfer item. Let's see. Oh, yeah. The thing that's different from this time around is added at the bottom. I want to reiterate that this purchase has already happened this year. The proposal is to move that purchase to provide immediate relief to the general fund and take that money out of capital improvement fund, which would be from the pre-existing pay-as-you-go dollars that still remain there for our usage. And so that is the recommendation. It is not a long-term plan. In fact, as an update for people who may have missed or not caught it last meeting, we've also paused textbook adoption for next year at the very least. And so we will not have, this would provide immediate relief now, and we're also not going to incur costs for textbooks next year beyond what we need in order to sustain certain licenses. So no new adoption for next year. And just while I'm on it as well, the topic of textbooks, there were several allusions in different emails and comments we got from folks about the necessity of updating textbooks. I think people differ in their opinion on that. But the one thing I did want to correct was there was this intimation that those textbook purchases are made unilaterally with no feedback and input here at central office, and that maybe we were wasting money on textbooks that nobody had any input into. I want to remind people of what that process is. It's a very lengthy process with so much opportunity for feedback, and those textbooks are selected by a committee of teachers from schools all across the school district. And typically the way that has worked, again, we're not doing it this year because of our decision to pause, but usually that process starts a good year or so in advance. Teachers are collected from all over the district at every grade level and given opportunity to pilot those in their classrooms. So those are piloted by teachers, and at the end, the teachers as a committee together decide which was their preferred option. And then those textbooks in the past have sat in that back corner at a table. We've publicly notified that anyone that would like to see and review those textbooks and give opinion into the content of those textbooks, that is there. I think the only person I ever saw view any of those was Dr. Byers one day with the physical textbook. And so that process is very open, it's very transparent. It's probably not the most interesting thing to do on any given day or evening is to go peruse textbooks, but that process has always been very open, and we don't make that decision. We facilitate a process whereby teachers ultimately decide from textbooks that are approved by the state of Nevada. That's the other very important element that I should have started with, is we don't just get to even choose from what we pilot, except it comes off a list from the state. So not relevant to exactly this, but because there was that misconception, I want to make sure to clear that up, that there is a process where people are able to contribute. The update to this one is, at our last meeting, I let you know that I had requested the support of our internal district capital improvement committee or advisory group, and which consists of representatives who've been invited from every one of our 7 communities. We don't always have everyone from all communities there at every meeting, but it was a good representation at our last meeting, and they were supportive of us doing this. And then just yesterday, in our quarterly meeting with the County Capital Improvement Oversight Panel, I also proposed this to them and requested their support, since the county does provide 20 cents of capital improvement. And the original intention with that money was to be for other projects. And even though even though the money we would be drawing from is not even that 20 cents, just for the sake of transparency, so they understand what we're doing and why. And they asked a bunch of great questions. In the end, they voted in support of this as well. So at our meeting next week, you can expect to see this on the agenda for the last step in the process, which would be board approval to transfer that very large purchase, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2 million. Is that going to be your question?
It was.
Okay.
Next week, I'm assuming we'll be able to narrow it down to more than a neighborhood and maybe a house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we'll
Thank you.
get you the specific room that number lives in. All right. The next one falls under the other things that would have been in that left column, which are board action required proposals. The first bullet point here, the consolidation of Elko 5th grade students from Flagview Intermediate to the Elko Elementary Schools, is the next item on the agenda, so I won't dwell on that here. The next two they're both about fee structures. One is about outside use of our district facilities, as well as that of a pay to participate structure for participation in district-sponsored athletics. So we are still working on policies for those, and then exploring different types of fee structures to accompany them. And while this did backfire a little bit last week, I'm still going to try to be helpful anyway with this information when it comes to the district-sponsored athletics item. I will try to say in the most plain English I can right now that on the bullet point that says examples, these are simply examples. This is not a plan of mine, nor is it a plan of the board's. I simply wanted to give you an idea of what a certain dollar per student per sport would look like. Lest anyone say the district is planning to do either 40 or 50 or 75. I'm publicly refuting that notion. These are examples of what those dollars would equate to based off of this year. We did a pretty good tally of how many roster spots were filled by kids at our schools in high school for sports. So that number was right at 2,340 roster spots. That is that does have, that is duplicated numbers for students who play in multiple sports. So when you take that number and you multiply it by $40, that's where you get $94,000. And likewise for $50 and likewise for $75. There are an almost infinite number of possibilities of how you could establish a fee structure. So I'm not going to give you every possibility. Mr. Anderson, why did you choose to give us 40, 50, and 75 as examples? That is because those are similar to other fee structures that exist around the state of Nevada. So that is why I just gave those as ideas. Either way you slice it, if it's one of those three, which I'm not suggesting we do one of those three, that still comes nowhere close to covering even a little bit of what the district has to supplement for the cost of athletics, which, as we saw in last week's agenda, is multiple millions of dollars every year to have sports go. And I also included that I would not want to misrepresent that we would definitively save that much money because, number one, that is based off of current roster numbers, and number two, we also discussed the likely need for, if there exists hardships for students and families being able to meet those that fee structure, then of course every person that qualified for a hardship waiver, potentially based on a free or reduced lunch or any other strategy, then that would obviously, for every person, that would deduct from that savings or that revenue generated. And then the last one on here is any changes to the self-funded insurance plan. And the update is we have a meeting tomorrow. So we will be discussing this further, and really appreciate the contributions of the union leaderships and other district personnel who take part in that committee.
Mr. Anderson, before we go too far on this, if I may, Mr. President, previously I had indicated that I'd like to see that those who do not submit a free and reduced lunch form would not be eligible for waivers. And in that I intimated that meant that was going to be the potential waiver. Are we as a district allowed to verify self-reported income?
I'm not sure I understand your question. I thought I had an answer, but would you please clarify?
Absolutely. Hypothetically, if I'm a parent and I say, yep, I qualify for free lunch, or my kids do, I should say.
Yeah.
Does the district have the ability to verify that?
Yeah, so the FRL form, or the free and reduced lunch form, is a federal process. It's not, we didn't just create a form and ask people to, it's a federal form that gets filled out and gets put through a verification process already. We don't just take people at their word. People have to voluntarily give that information about what their income is, and that is crossed through, my understanding anyway, is that it's crossed through federal databases to verify that that's accurate.
Perfect, thank you. And also just to confirm from an athletic standpoint, purchase of spirit packs, fundraising, et cetera, that goes to either the school or the program. That does not come back to the Elko County School District General Fund, correct?
Yeah, I feel, yes. I don't know where every dollar goes of everything having to do with athletics, but I do know that the spirit packs those go to the programs themselves. That's to support those programs.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next one. This is some more updated information. Looks a little different than last time. So as we talk about review of current position reductions, as I've stated before, and as is really important to understand, is that in a funding formula that is directly tied to student enrollments, the funds there need to they need to be tied to student levels of enrollment. I know that sounds redundant to say it that way, but it's very important that your staffing matches the amount of students that you have. And so this is always an ongoing and annual process. We reduced some positions last year. We reduced some positions the year before, and this is always an evaluation, which I can remember dating back to when I was the principal in Wells. You always get a phone call every year from your HR director, and they say, let's talk about what your enrollment is and what that means for how many staff members you get. So that has happened in previous years, and it's not an invention to be doing it right now. So this is where we currently are looking with, and this was as of, I guess this is not as of today. I can't confidently say that. I can say this was as of Monday. We had already identified 18 certified positions for reduction at elementary schools. 7 of those would come from elementary schools in Elko, 6 of those in Spring Creek, and 5 of those not in Elko and Spring Creek. And then we are still evaluating at secondary schools. Those are tougher to do because not only are they based on enrollments at secondary schools, but they're also based on what classes students register for. And those registration processes are starting to happen, but they also can be contingent on some of these other things we're talking about. So we behooves us to be able to move forward with decisions to make sure that we're able to analyze that accurately. So there were 18 certified positions at elementaries. In addition to those 8, and what that means when I say there are 18 identified for reduction, that means that we have enough students, we have 18 too many classes for the amount of students that we have. That's what that means. And so that is why they are identified for reduction. Now, to go along with, and kind of in contrast to that, while there are 18 reductions that are going to happen, there are 13 people to date that have already retired or resigned for.
And can I ask you real quick, does that include what will be on next week's?
No, I don't think so. Cody, will you? They're the ones that are on next week's agenda.
There was 5 for next week.
Okay, so that does not count the 5 that are on next week's agenda. No. So that would be updated. You're ruining next week's update.
Sorry.
Well, that number will be bigger next week. And that's this is a very normal process that happens every year. People get to the end of their career and they say, I'm out of here. And so we have some more of those coming.
The sample size on this is like 600, right? Total people?
Well, there's a little over 600, there's about 600 or so certified positions, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, additionally, we have 23 critical needs positions that are currently active. Critical needs, as a reminder, is a teacher who, I guess it doesn't have to be a teacher, but a certified position who has retired but has come back and filled a position that was vacant. Those are, they're amazing teachers, but because they're retired, that also means they're probably the highest paid teachers we have in the district, or somewhere close to it if they're not. So critical needs, we have 23 of those that every year are 1-year contracts, and then, I don't even know if maybe contract is the wrong word, 1-year agreement. And then we have another 30 long-term sub positions that also we're filling in for classrooms that were vacant from a teacher standpoint. So those numbers, the reason I present them all together, and I'm not gonna take the time right now to explain exactly the process of how it works, of who goes where, when, but these numbers all are interrelated, right? Because if we reduce 18 positions at elementary schools in our district, and this doesn't even count secondary schools, immediately someone will mistakenly declare that means we are riffing 18 teachers, and that's not what that means. Because in this same situation, we have demonstrated that there are also 13 other people that are retiring or resigning. So there's 13 openings that just occurred. I've also indicated that there are 23 positions that are on a 1 year at a time basis, depending on what our need is. So, and then the same thing would go for long-term sub positions. So that means that there are 66 up there that are not guaranteed a job next year. 13 of them are definitely not having a job next year because they're going to enjoy the mountains or the sunshine somewhere. But then the other ones are filled on an as-needed basis, right? And so that's relevant for not only those 18 that have been identified, but any others that are identified at the secondary level once we get those registration numbers. And this is also relevant for the next agenda item when we talk about where will people go. They will go to these positions that are being filled by temporary replacements. So that's always an ongoing process, and as I mentioned last week, we are very much in a situation where certain decisions have to happen before we can really move forward. We are also evaluating 0 hours. As a reminder, a 0 hour is when a teacher who is entitled to a preparation period of their day because of numbers of enrollments or of registrations opts to what we call sell their prep. They forego the right to have a preparation period and receive additional compensation instead. We are, again, based on registrations and evaluations, determining what that number is for reduction, and that it's tantamount to 1/7 of their salary they get on top of what their salary is. So that adds up pretty quickly when you get a lot of those going. So it's mostly relevant at the high schools, but it can also occur in other situations as well at middle school and elsewhere. So really trying to make sure we're only using those where absolutely necessary and making adjustments where we can. And there will be, by the time we're done analyzing it, there will be quite a lot of them. But I don't have a good number to give you an estimate right now. But it will be hundreds of thousands of dollars that are saved on doing that. And NVA expansion, we're still looking at how we want to structure that for next year, trying to be thoughtful about the best way to do that, but we want to open that up to provide more options and flexibility for families who are looking for an online option, but still want to not necessarily have to pay additional money for education. And then we are committed to also coming up with a credit recovery fee structure and make sure that students who were unsuccessful the first time around through a class will have some skin in the game on the other side of that, trying to do it again, but also being considerate of specific situations. We will hear, there are reasons why sometimes that isn't just the cynical version of why that happens. There are also very real demonstrated needs of why that happens sometimes. But we are still working on that as well. Well, that's it, I think, actually. Yeah. So that's all the items and our progress on them at this time.
Thank you. I do have some public comment, but I'll go to the board first for any comment or discussion.
Can I ask a question of something that's not on this?
Sure. I just want to reiterate one more time, though. If it's not on there, it's not one of my proposals, but I'm happy to answer questions about it.
I just was wondering if you and your team have thought about, for example, cutting offerings of classes at the high school level, or do you base that off of enrollment?
Yeah, that's typically going to be based off of registrations of students at that school, yeah. So we are only obligated to offer what is required for students to be able to graduate. So you need the certain core classes. You have to have enough electives for kids to be able to take electives to graduate. So those offerings do vary based on student enrollment and registration. Sometimes programs naturally see themselves out because kids don't want to take the class for one reason or another. And or it could be that lots of times in rural Nevada, depending on how rural you are in Nevada, it's just that offering, you had a German teacher and now you don't have a German teacher. Or you had something that you no longer have someone certified to teach. So, but yeah, those can change. We don't necessarily have to have everything available. And one of the nice things about having, even though online learning isn't always the best for every situation, there are great things about having the online capabilities, that if a student's truly passionate about something and it's just not a class that we can offer in person because of certification, oftentimes with our online curriculum that we work with Admentum, that we can find potentially a course for that student to take that's according to their interest, as opposed to something that they just would have to take to fill a schedule. So we'd rather have them doing something they're interested in.
Okay. And then, have you and your team ever discussed, I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but like with our food program of possibly, like, we used to have satellite kitchens and, you know, different, or cutting down on menu items, has the food service part been discussed as budget things?
Yes, we're always evaluating how our food service program is going, as hopefully is evident in that we've changed it twice since you've been on the board and I've been the superintendent. So yeah, we're constantly evaluating to see how we can get the most savings out of, or not savings, but lose the least amount of money, because that's usually the way that works with the food services. You're just trying not to lose a ton of money, because you also want to make money off of kids being fed. But yeah, we're evaluating it.
Okay. And then one last one. I'm just assuming, and I don't know where it comes from, but do you ask schools, hey, look at your budget, where can you cut, versus yourself or Cassie or somebody saying, hey, I need you to cut 50,000, whatever that amount, I won't say an amount, whatever amount that is, how does that work?
Yeah, so in the when I mentioned earlier that there's typically a conversation that happens every year about, hey, here are the positions, there's a greater conversation that goes on with the school administrator about what their needs are. I will say, having been in the principal spot before, you're not usually keen to let them know that here's an area where you can take somebody if you need to. Typically, that conversation is more one-sided of it. Hey, we're going to have to do this based off of these numbers, because there's no classroom or teacher or paraprofessional that's just kicking their feet up and having a grand old time at the school level. Everyone is very busy, and anytime you can get an extra body or individual who can help and lighten the load, that's always a welcome thing at a campus. And so my experience, both as a principal and as an administrator, a district administrator, is those conversations, usually there's not a whole lot of, yeah, sure, go ahead and take these 5 people from me. That doesn't typically happen.
And I wasn't necessarily talking about people, just in general, like
Yeah.
anything from their budget itself.
Yeah, and they have their own budgets as well. Their A budget, as we call it, for instruction and for web-based programming and for employee travel and books and other options. And we will, typically schools are pretty good about spending their budget, but the timeline of when they spend it, when they don't, we have ongoing conversations throughout the year as well to say, hey, we're halfway through the year and you've only spent 10% of your budget. Do you need it or do you not need it? And try to keep them on top of the ball with their budget.
Okay, I was just trying to eliminate like those extras, so thank you.
Yep.
I will just say, I've asked CJ, if you look at slide 2 where it talks about the responsibilities for decisions and the things that we've talked about as a board and the things that CJ is recommending that he would decide on, I've asked him to tally up kind of some averages or totals on what we can expect to save in these different things, just to give us, I would really like to kind of have an idea of where we stand if we move forward with these things, kind of where we stand. I know in the first meeting when we heard his recommendations, everything he recommended was supposed to add up to about 11 million. So I'd like to see where we stand, because I know some things have been added to the list now.
Certainly.
Anything further from the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, if I may.
Trustee McCarty.
I'll wait until he's finished writing so that he's, ready for me.
Bring it on.
So first, thank you very much, Superintendent Anderson, because I know that previously you'd indicated that you were not looking at building rentals and credit recovery. So thank you for, as I think you've said in the past, With revised data comes revised opinions, so I appreciate you looking into that. To confirm on page 6 or slide 6, which includes the critical needs and the long-term subs, this is a review, not a removal of those positions, correct? And it's not saying it won't be removed, but we're not simply saying, yep, we're getting rid of 53.
No, yeah, that's not what I'm saying. So again, thinking about annual processes for, I mean, critical needs have only been around for the last 4 years or so. Long-term subs have been around for a long time. But the way these work every year is around this time of year. We essentially post all of those jobs for every one of those people because the preference is to have a certified teacher in every classroom. And so you make that effort. And in fact, in order to qualify for certain grant funding or to be able to, for our class size reduction plan that we do, you have to demonstrate an attempt to, and multiple attempts to try to fill classrooms with qualified teachers. And so, yeah, every year, all of your long-term subs and all your critical needs are they're more or less informed that you don't necessarily have a job in a classroom again next year. We are going to post those jobs. We're going to try to fill them with other certified teachers who are who are certified on the long-term sub end and who are not retired on the critical needs end. And you do your very best, some places harder than others, to fill those jobs. And typically the timeline has been when you get to about early to mid-July, and things are starting to get close to the beginning of the school year and you really need to nail down a plan, then we sort of give the go-ahead to, hey, we've done our due diligence, we've posted this job, it's been posted for 6 months and no one's picked up on it, or 5 months and no one's picked it up, or we couldn't find a qualified person. Then you say, okay, well, we still need to fill, we still need to have that classroom, right? We're not just gonna take this opportunity to eliminate as many as possible. We're trying to, I used the term right size before, we're trying to right size the number of teaching positions to the number of students at those schools. And so, yeah, I think I've said this before and it's fine to say it again. I'm like 100% sure, maybe hundreds, 99-point-something% sure that there will be at least one critical needs teacher somewhere in our district, and there will be at least one long-term sub, and the number's probably bigger than one on both of those. But that's where you start when you have places you need to put certified teachers who are not retired. Is that a, yeah, okay.
Anything further from the board before I bring in this public comment? All right, and I want to apologize because I skipped a couple people on item 2.04 because it went so quickly, but I want to give you the opportunity first to come up here because it's somewhat applicable. So first name I'm going to call is Paul McEnany. McEnany? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. That's an N. Got it. Please state your name for the record, and also just a reminder to everyone, I'm not going to read the whole speech again, but it's 3 minutes. You can assign a portion. All that, if you would, please.
Okay, Paul McEnany, teacher in the district here. So I'm just, I know the fiscal emergency didn't happen, so a lot I was talking about that on that one. And I'm just going to address a few things that the board members have stated about pay cuts and a few things like that. First of all, teachers aren't highly paid to begin with, okay? You're talking a first-year teacher making $48,000 a year, you talk a 5% pay cut, that's a huge cut on that, okay? As teachers are losing SB 231, they get refunded by the state. That's a 3% pay cut we're taking again this year, okay? There was another comment about getting rid of the steps, okay? By the state of Nevada, we're required to get credits in order to keep our licenses. That's how we get steps and move over on the pay scale. Take away the steps, there's another 3.5% pay cut for the teachers, okay? These are all comments made by the board members, okay? And then I'll just use myself for an example on my insurance. I pay $9,200 a year to insure my family. Okay, that's what I pay out of pocket for my insurance, not counting myself, but for my family, I pay $9,200 a year. When we talk about, changes to self-insured insurance, that means rates are gonna go up. So that means more money coming out of my pocket every year. So I'm just looking at a first-year teacher and me who's 1 year left, okay? I'm looking at possibly with all that, $8,000 plus pay cut if those were to go through. I know that we're not doing a financial thing now, so it's kind of a moot point. But I'm saying, I think things can be done differently rather than just taking it out of the teachers' pockets in order to do this, okay? And not counting the other things that the class sizes are gonna go up. Okay, so now you're gonna have more on the teachers, and you talk about taking away pay, okay? So I just wanna think as the board goes in there and thinks about this, and thinks about kind of, no, we're not gonna negotiate again until next year, which won't affect me because I'll be done, but it does affect first-year teachers. You guys talked about an hour last board meeting just on the pay raises, taking the pay away from the subs. And that took about an hour of just doing that. I think a lot of thought needs to go into when you're bringing up ideas of taking pay cuts away from teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Shannon Scott, but you're also 2.03. You want to hold for that item, or you're welcome to come up now? It's up to
Will I be
you.
allowed to do both at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I have.
In the 3 minutes, that's fine.
Yeah. Forgive me if I mess up any names here. I'm trying to read. Christina Messina?
Great. Good evening. My name is Chris Messina. I am standing here as a concerned educator and a parent of a student here in Elko County School District. First, I want to address some comments that have been made in past meetings. I take umbrage with the comment made by Trustee Durham on February 17th that teachers only show up when it affects us. Because Trustee, we show up every day for our students, for our families. We work beyond our prep hours. We grade after hours. We prepare for our classrooms beyond our prep hours. We decorate our classrooms and supply our classrooms with our personal money. And as Paul McEnany said, we do not make a lot of money. We serve on committees. We serve as advisors for extracurriculars. We serve as coaches. And the stipends that you receive do not make up for the time that you spend away from your family as an educator. So it's insulting to say that we only show up here when it affects us. We show up every day. I can also appreciate the suggestions that have been made, especially the technology suggestions like Chromebooks, moving away from the one-to-one. That is something that we have done at Adobe with great success in the social studies department. We don't use Chromebooks except for research. We do project-based physical activities, note-taking on paper, graphic organizers, and that gives us the opportunity to focus on other skills like organization, which the kids need. They need to learn these things. On the suggestion of increasing class sizes, have any of you been in a classroom as a teacher with 25 plus students? Maybe you have 5 plus EL students, 5 plus students with IEPs. You cannot give them the one-to-one that they need if you have 30 students in your classrooms. You just cannot do it, especially if you don't have anyone pushing in. This is the first year I ever had a para push into my classroom for one class period of 23 students. And I started one class with 32 students at the beginning of the school year. And you cannot reach all of them when you have that many students. All of our suggestions that have been tossed out over the past couple of weeks are going to impact the people who did not create this mess.
educators and their families. With increased class sizes, less supplies, that's going to impact the people who need it the most.
I'm sorry, that's your time.
Oh, thank you.
All right, next one I have Kathy Durham. Did you want to come now or do, it said both, but I see budget, so we'll bring you up now.
Well, I apologize for being late. I think you guys, I couldn't get, I want to talk.
Your mic might not be on.
Hello? Okay, I'll just use my teacher voice. Okay, start my time now. I apologize I was late. I think the item that I want to talk about has been taken off, but I'm going to still speak to it because it still talks about wages. I'm going to say that this is, it's not personal, this is business. But I will say that everything I have done, everything you have done this far has been personal to me and to every single staff member of ECSD. And in turn, it becomes personal to every single student and parent of a student. To my fellow teachers of ECSD, when they come for our salaries, class sizes, and even our schools, it's easy to start looking to our left and to our right at one another, looking for someone to blame, to point fingers at. But let's remember, we as staff members had absolutely nothing to do with this current crisis. We did not cause it, we did not contribute to it, but it has become clear that we are the ones expected to pay for it. So don't look to your right, don't look to your left, look up. It's the people above us who directly and indirectly created the mess we're in. They too can look up at the state and assign partial blame, but that's for them to go declare at their public meeting. Tonight is our night, our meeting to advocate for our families, our students, and our schools. To the district and the board, I know my voice and my arguments as to why cuts to salaries, teachers, and schools should not be made will have little to no impact on decisions. The fact that you even considered these options tell us all we need to know how you think budget crises should be solved. I've listened to past meetings and comments. Your cuts to teachers were always on the table and sometimes your first options. Now, my gentle reminder, this is not personal, this is business. To the superintendent, you want the board to declare an emergency so our contracts can be renegotiated. Will you request that your contract with the district be renegotiated at the same time? To the board, will you allow the public to hold an emergency meeting to determine if we should hold a special election to see if you should be retained your position? Of course not. But you'll come first after the teachers and ask that they sacrifice their contract that secures their working conditions. But yours is off limits. As teachers, we signed a contract that made our personal family budget based on an agreement you promised. Now, because we have a budget crisis, your solution is to create a budget crisis in the personal lives of every teacher. As teachers, we always embrace the motto that everything we do with students in mind. Yet the proposed cuts make it harder for us to be effective teachers, which in turn has a negative impact on our students. The proposed cuts you make are not only deeply personal to us, but they contribute to the existing problem. When you cut funding and staffing at schools, you become less effective. Parents become unhappy, they pull their kids out of school, and we lose more funding. The cycle repeats. As I approach the end of my teaching career, it would be easy for me to ride out the storm, make my exit, and cause no waves.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 2.03, review, discussion, and possible approval regarding the proposed consolidation of fifth grade from Flagview Intermediate School to the respective Elko elementary schools. For possible action, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you for those comments. RJ, if you could get this one up there too, thank you. All right, get this going here. So this is regarding the proposal that I've made as a cost-saving measure to consolidate our fifth grade students in the city of Elko to the elementary schools. So first, just gonna lay that out here, what that would look like if we were to move forward with it. So this is a recommendation to going into next school year, which is SY school year 27. That our current, so what that would mean is our current fourth grade students who are at our elementaries now would just not go anywhere for next year. They would stay at their current elementary schools, or if there was a desire to variant somewhere else, that process would exist, just like it always does. Then the current fifth grade students who are at Flagview right now would obviously continue on to sixth grade at Flagview, and our current sixth graders at Flagview would continue on to Adobe Middle School as they normally would. The obvious step to that is without a fifth grade at Flagview, there would be teaching staff that would need to be relocated. We have several who are have already retired and or resigned. I can't remember exactly, but there would be remaining staff that would obviously no longer fit the enrollment of that school anymore, if that were to happen. So I very intentionally use the term relocate teaching staff, and I mentioned in my last item presentation that the numbers that I gave regarding positions for reduction and long-term subs and retirements and resignations and critical needs teachers, that is where this is relevant, is the intention would be to find classrooms from those temporary placements for these teachers who would need to be relocated. And the same could be said for other staff as well. And when I say as necessary, that also, I want to make sure that it's clear what that means. Of course, the teachers are necessary. What that means is it's unlikely that you will simply say, well, you can't say two of these classrooms are going to go over here, right? Because we're not putting fifth graders back. It would just be dependent on, you look at each of the 4 elementary schools, because those are who are going to be fifth grade students next year, and you would be making the number of fifth grade classrooms dependent on who those kids are now at those schools and where they are enrolled for next year. So that's where as necessary, that's what that means. Obviously, it's not regarding whether or not teachers are necessary, because that is obvious. The next element of this plan is to scale other positions, and so I've labeled them this way as administrative classroom and other classified and certified support positions at Flagview to match the enrollment. What happens at a school is the more students you get, obviously the more teachers you get, but there's also other personnel that gets scaled up. If a school increases in enrollment, you would need potentially an additional administrator, you would need potentially a secretary or custodians or counselors or social workers. There's all these other positions that become necessary as student enrollment increases. And I think it's reasonable to say that the opposite is also true. As an enrollment number decreases, you would scale personnel to match that in the other direction as well. So that is relevant to the conversation. And as a summary of what the whole point behind this, because sometimes, I know Kathy said she was very poignant when she said that this isn't personal, it's just business. Everything is personal when it impacts you. It doesn't mean it's meant personally. It's just that it feels personal. And trust me, amidst all of this, there's a lot of things that I've felt personally as well from people. And the idea behind all this, the guiding kind of principle is not just with this, but with all of my proposals, has been to find areas for budget reductions that would find significant additional savings while causing the least amount of disruption to students as possible. That doesn't mean an absence of disruption, but it's how can we do this with the least amount that I can think of. So that's why we're doing things in various places, and so that's the guiding principle there. So some of the justifications behind why I think that this is not a good idea, but it's not my favorite idea, but it's an idea, a proposal to find money to save is that our current fourth and fifth grade students will get to, this is where the least amount of disruption comes in, is they get to stay at the school that they're already enrolled in and familiar with. So this is not necessarily, I don't know everyone's individual scenarios, but it's not necessarily disruption for them because they will be where they already are and at a school they're familiar with. In most cases. Our current sixth grade students also will, there'll be little to no disruption there for them as they go to Adobe Middle School. So they were going to be going there anyway. I do acknowledge that when the positions start to shuffle around a little bit for teachers, that obviously that does creates disruption for the adults, and that there may be a teacher at a school that wasn't anticipated being there, or a student may have a teacher that they might not have otherwise had. So it's really hard to know what that level will be, but that is again, where that thinking comes from. Another justification for this is that we currently, because of declining enrollment, obviously that means there's empty space at schools. And in order to more efficiently use space at certain buildings, then this makes that a little more efficient at 4 other schools. And so there's some efficiency there, and not just with the space, but for the personnel at those schools, because other than adding teachers to accommodate those fifth grade classrooms, there are other positions that will not necessarily have to be added at those schools, which is where some of the savings comes from. Next one, we all know Flagview is a very unique setup in Elko County School District. I feel like it's worth mentioning that if we were to do this, then that would mean consistently across the district, all of our fifth grade students would be in elementary schools. Currently, Elko is the city of Elko is the only place where the fifth graders are not at an elementary school. And I bring that up, I don't really want to get into, this is an opinion, that I think there have been some comments and suggestions that there's some detriment to our students by having them, our fifth grade students, having them at elementary schools. And I want to make this point that I reject that notion, because if it is, then that means you are intentionally causing harm to kids who are at elementary schools in fifth grade, and I just don't believe that. If it's okay for our 4 outlying communities, and it's okay for Wendover, and it's okay for Spring Creek, then I think we're okay to have fifth graders in elementary schools in Elko as well. There is a cost savings that is created without reducing teaching positions. And I put in parentheses less those that would already be reduced anyway due to declining enrollment. In the last presentation, I mentioned that this process happens anyway. There would have been some teacher reductions or reduction of positions because that's necessary when enrollment declines. But this, I used the word transfer earlier, and that is the reality. I do not anticipate that while they will not be in the classroom potentially that they were at the school that they were at before, there will be a position for those teachers. I keep seeing, even as recently as just before this meeting, that we're getting rid of the teachers, and that's just factually incorrect. We would also be, I've seen a couple of times, this has not been brought up before, but because it was being referenced as a possibility to the negative, I want to make sure that it's clear that this is not a factor. Some people have brought up the point that by doing this, we're going to create more busing needs. The reality is we anticipate we will be reducing one route of transportation by making this change. And this last one, I recognize a lot of this is my opinion, but I want to make sure that this is clear that as we were going through and looking at different possibilities of what we're going to do to try to address this, that it is my opinion that it is preferable to do a consolidation of this type rather than closing down an entire school. I think that that is more disruptive, in my opinion, to students, to staff, and to families when you completely shut down a school. And it would also, doing an entire school closure would also prompt a need to do complete rezoning of the city of Elko and the way we structure our schools in the city if we were to do that. So that would be more disruptive, in my opinion, recognizing that it's still disruptive to a certain extent. The cost savings breakdown is based on projections, these projections are based on current student enrollment and staff at Elko Elementary Schools and at Flagview, and anticipated school sizes were this change to happen. I have seen a lot of, I've heard and seen comments of we want to see the exact numbers, we want to see the exact numbers. I have decided not to list out every single person's name and their position. I'm trying not to identify individuals. I know who the individuals are, but these are what the numbers represent from those individuals. I hope that, I hope that that's okay. Out of respect for people, I'm trying not to air their personal business in open meetings and talk about them in open meetings in that way. But where the savings come from, about whatever it was 2 or 3 weeks ago when I first made this proposal, maybe it was about a month ago now, there was, I gave a number of 500,000 plus as the anticipated savings. The more we've dove into that, the number, as you can see, I'm getting ahead with a couple of bullet points, but that number is now a projected savings of $837,448.70. So the way these numbers are calculated is it's completely based on the salaries, benefits, and PERS that the district pays for each of the positions that are wrapped up in these numbers. So the 5 certified positions include teacher positions, administrator, and certified support. So those are all certified positions. Those 5 positions alone, once you factor in benefits and PERS, come up to $542,002. None of those positions, I will say before, none of those individuals, let me correct that statement, none of those individuals are being riffed or fired. They all will have a place to go, even again, if it's not in the place they're currently employed. The eliminated 6 classified positions, I'll get back to that. The number for that wrapped up in those 6 for their salary, benefits, and PERS is $295,446.20. When I say eliminate there, that does not necessarily refer to those people, rather the positions, rather a position of if it's we'll just say, for example, a secretary. Like that would not necessarily be that person who wouldn't have a job, that they might go to another campus, but a secretary somewhere else might potentially not have a job. And again, that is related to school size. When a school reduces in size, you do not have as many secretaries and other classified support positions. So that comes up to that total of $837,448.70, and that number is 100% just salary, benefits, and PERS. I have not made a big deal about, nor do I intend to talk about any other sort of ancillary savings on how much cleaning supply you would need for the spaces that you're now using and not using, or the cost of lights for rooms that aren't, for the trailers that aren't being used anymore. There would be additional savings, but it's not worth in my opinion, trying to calculate and factor into this whole equation, but there would be additional savings. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a drink of water real quick. One of the other questions that I've had regarding this, or assertions that I've seen made, is that it's going to cost so much money to prepare spaces for these students and these teachers to go into. I've had conversations with all of our administrators at those schools. There are spaces that are already in use that will be repurposed for these reasons. And so there is not, we don't have anything that drastically needs to be prepared. There's stuff that's gonna have to get moved. We're gonna have to move boxes, we're gonna have to move furniture. We're gonna have to do a little cleaning in something that's been used as a storage space potentially. But those spaces exist. They have existed in such a fashion that any costs to get them going will be minimal, and mostly wrapped up just in labor costs of people we pay during the summer to do this type of work anyway. And every summer at every school, people are moving things around and cleaning, doing some deep cleaning. So those costs happen anyway. There likely will have to be some level of repair and maybe some modular buildings at a school, but it's not projected to be very much. Right now, the estimated cost, if you don't consider labor, which again, we're gonna be paying people anyway over the summer, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 or so just to get different parts and maybe do some repairs and things like that. And of note is the whole purpose of this is to create savings for our general fund. Those types of costs would not come out of the general fund. Those would come out of the Buildings and Sites Fund or potentially the Capital Improvement Fund if it was something bigger than that, but I don't anticipate anything on the capital improvement level of correction that would have to happen for any of these spaces. One more slide, I think. This question has been asked a lot. The answer is, I don't know. And I don't know why a lot of people are uncomfortable with saying they don't know when they don't know. But that happens. I've put up here possible options, and I would love to reiterate that not only are none of these my individual plan to carry out, these would have to be any of these would probably we would pass through the board and have community input. But I feel like possible options have to exist because there are different scenarios. So the first scenario, optimistically, is if enrollments increase again. I see two logical pathways. Either we return fifth grade students back to Flagview because the elementaries, if they start to increase to such an extent that we don't have the space anymore, then they could go back. Or another option, which I know was considered in the past, and I don't totally know all the history of it, but something that I've heard is, we could consider the option of having a second 6th through 8 campus and have a couple of have Adobe and Flagview both be middle school. So I think those are two different options should enrollments increase. And that is, again, going with we're not harming children by having those scenarios. We currently have existing 6th through 8 campuses in other communities, and we could do the same here. Another idea, and we had a public comment a little while back that alluded to this, and we've been working internally on something of this nature for a couple of years, but just due to funding and due to uncertainty, had not kind of moved forward with it yet. But recognizing that as enrollments decline, there's some people leave because they're upset about things, but a lot of people leave because because they want more flexibility, they want a different option, they want a different environment or format. And so, we've talked about these ideas of having some sort of innovative school model or innovative school of choice. And, none of these are necessarily, it's not some grand idea that I or anyone else has come up with, but we see these in other communities. And sometimes we do get that sentiment from people of, man, I love the smaller feeling of where we are, but, we lose access to some of these other types of schools that exist in bigger communities. And so trying to think of a way where, Flagview could be potentially, and I think this could happen in either an enrollment increase or enrollment decrease situation, that you could repurpose the building for an exciting, innovative school model. And so I just gave a few up there as what I mean by that. I don't mean that it would necessarily be any one of those three or all three of those. I think that that's simply, those are examples of what I'm talking about. And with the idea being to have competitive and creative options for education. We live in a society and an economy of choice. And so trying to think of ways to provide more choice for people. So that's something we'll continue to look at. That would involve recognizing that if it's choice, then we would want to know what people's most interesting choices are, what their most attractive choices are. And so were that something we were going to move forward with, then that would be extensive community feedback. Katie gave an excellent comment earlier about involving parents in the process and what they want and how they can be involved in their students' education. Something like this would obviously include a lot of parental input and feedback. And then at the bottom, the least desirable option, obviously we do not want to continue to see significant enrollment decreases, but should they continue to decrease, the mentality would remain the same of you in a funding formula where funds are tied to student enrollments. These staff numbers ought to be as well. And so if those enrollments continue to decrease, we would engage in a similar process of where else can those consolidations happen, make the most efficient use of our spaces, and continue to scale to what our enrollment numbers are. And gave a couple of options even there with either absorb those students into elementary schools and make our elementary schools K-6, which also, I would like to point out, I don't believe is harmful to our students. All 4 of our combined schools have their kids in K-6 formats, and very happy 6th graders when I was the principal in Wells. So I believe that both things can be true. They can be at an elementary school and happy. Again, thinking of Adobe as a potential 6 through 8 campus, depending on the enrollment numbers. And I say that because Adobe is, they definitely do not have the capacity to add a whole nother grade level there right now, but should numbers decrease to a point where they would need to go that way, then we could. So those are future possible options and plans. And in the case of in case of enrollments increasing and having some sort of big change to the format, we would do something similar to this. In case of a school of choice, we would do something similar to this, as well as gathering, all people's feedback who are willing to participate in that feedback process. And then in the case of closing a school entirely, I feel like it's worth mentioning that school closures, there is an NRS process that requires how that's done. It requires public notice of the possibility, much like we're doing here. And that has to have a certain number of months of advance notice. It requires comment. It requires feedback periods with surveys and community feedback, and probably look at other forums and things like that any way we possibly could to get people's feedback on that before such a decision would be made. So, but again, that's tough to project that we would do that, do any of these depending on the enrollment numbers. So you wanted to, I think it's been asked by many people and even from staff at Flagview what happens long-term. These are options. But again, I don't think I just unilaterally have the ability to make any of these decisions anyway. So these are thoughts going through my head, as there are many other thoughts. And it's question time.
All right, and before we get to that, board, I do have public comment. What I'd like to do is give everybody a chance for a quick summary or a quick question here, but save the bulk of it for after public comment. That'd be all right, but if there's anybody like to say anything right now, please go ahead.
I just have two quick questions. This was a question sent to me, and I would just like to have this clarified a little bit because I'm not really sure. They said, I'm looking at this presentation and it looks like double savings might be calculated in the consolidation plan. The district reports savings from a hiring freeze, which includes 3 to 4 Flagview teachers leaving, but might be counting it again as the 5 certified staff positions being eliminated through consolidation. If it does, savings is overstated.
No, and we are not double counting. When we looked at, if you look back at the other presentation with the number of positions to be reduced, Flagview was not included in that. These are being counted here only for this purpose, separately from that one. And then when we talk about kind of the domino effect of when if an administrator goes to, let's just say an administrator goes to a teacher job, there's a minimal savings that happens from that portion, and so that's calculated in there. But eventually that trickles down to what we would probably have as a critical needs teacher position that would come out. And so the reason I can confidently tell you that hasn't been double calculated is I have not given you a calculation of the critical needs teachers on the other end. I've just told you we have 18 critical need, or what's the number? However many I said, sorry, 13, I don't remember the number. I have not given you a calculation on that, so there has not been a double calculation.
Okay. And then my other question is on slide 5, where you talk about the future plans of Flagview and talk about the STEM Academy, dual language immersion, or anything like that. There would be probably some pretty significant costs associated with doing something like that. And so if you look into that at all. My mic is? Anyways, if you've looked into that at all, and how far down the road would we even be able to do something like that since we're in a budget crisis right now?
Yeah, so that is, I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about it, but that is why we have not done something already. I think there are ways to do it without necessarily spending a lot of money. Yeah, the simple answer is that's why we haven't done it yet. So I recognize that it costs money. I recognized it before, I'll recognize it again. And so when I say future plans, no one should interpret that to mean for the school year after next year. I mean, technically that is the future, but so is 2029, and so is 2030, and so is 2031. Those all qualify as the future. So I'm thinking potentially short-term and long-term future. These are options depending on enrollment and what ability we have to do these things.
Thank you. Board, anything further before I go to public comment? All right, we will go to public comment right now. Please keep your public comment to the item on the agenda, and the same rules apply, 3 minutes per person. And we'll go ahead and start with Shannon Scott. If you could, you'll want to step into the mic because we have folks online and this is being recorded on YouTube.
Shannon Scott, thank you for allowing me to speak. And previously you did say I'd be permitted to speak to 204 at this time as well. So I'd like to address both 203 and 204, maybe in 3.5 minutes.
You have 3 minutes. So.
Okay. First, Flagview. Looking at school grade configurations, recent research reviews have summarized findings and offered valid suggestions. Reflective of most, here's one from MIT Press 2022 by Richard DeSalvo. DeSalvo examines the question of whether or not grade level configurations affect student academic performance. He used recent district by grade data for nearly the entire United States that contain measures of test score achievement and rates of school switching due to grade configuration. DeSalvo found that student performance is, on average, low following switches, but in fact, students perform relatively better in the grades just prior to these switches. DeSalvo refers to switches as top dog, bottom dog structures. In this case, sixth graders are top dogs, fifth graders are bottom dogs. So when students switch schools and become bottom dogs, so to speak, their performance is less than what could be achieved if they had stayed at their previous schools. His findings address the question, what is best for students? What is best for fourth graders is to stay put so they do not fall into bottom dog statistics. Additionally, each year, many fourth grade parents express hesitation in sending their children to Flagview, telling us that they will homeschool or try to get their children into a charter school. We fourth grade teachers try to allay their concerns, but are sure that at least some of these students will be leaving for other options. One student lost is one student lost. I have taught at various schools. At each school, I not only taught, I learned. Since no one can take away education or experiences, teaching in varied school settings leads us to become more informed teachers. I would encourage fifth grade teachers to embrace change as an opportunity to grow within the profession. And given that the fifth graders won't be bottom dogs, teachers will likely realize higher student achievement. Again, what is best for students? Lastly, to address 2.04, public schools employees are the largest workforce in the country, critically impacting national and local economies. The suggestion last week to reduce wages did not consider the broader economy, impact on local businesses, or hardship imposed on families. Recently, crude oil prices have surged over $100 a barrel. Gas prices have risen 17% in 2 weeks. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and leading economists are warning us of a significant inflationary period. This, coupled with reduced wages, spells hardship for families and batters local businesses. Due to the economic ripple effect, reducing Elko County School District salaries by even 2% would shrink the local economy by $1 million, thus reducing local tax sales revenue and unfairly punishing local businesses. Given viable and implementable budget cuts previously suggested by the interim budget committee.
That's your time.
Okay.
We do have an additional period at the end of the meeting, though.
I can't stay that long. I live way out and I have a McNabb pup who's chewing up my house. So thank you.
I want to extend that invitation. Thank you. Christopher Stevenson.
Good evening, trustees. For the record, my name is Christopher Stevenson. Flagview Intermediate is not just the school where I teach. It is a place that has shaped my entire journey here in the Elko County School District. I was the last 7th grade class at Elko Junior High School, the building now known as Flagview Intermediate. I was the first 8th grade class at Adobe Middle School. After graduating high school, I left Elko for a few years, but in 2018, I returned back home. That led me to start working as a substitute teacher and realizing how much I enjoyed working with students. That led me to pursue a full-time career in education here in this district. And for the past 7 years, I have called Flagview my home. 3 years working in the detention room, the last 4 teaching 6th grade. I also serve on the Flagview PTA. As the teacher representative, over the years, I have worked alongside an incredible group of parents, teachers, and staff who care deeply about making the school community strong for our students. Walt Disney once said, "You can design, create, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make the dream come true." Schools are no different. What makes a school successful is not just the building, the schedule, or the structure. It is the people and the relationships that are built over time between teachers, students, and families. Over the last month, we have heard this board say it must make sure it is doing what is best for students. But the proposal in front of you disrupts the very relationship we know are essential for student success. The proposal states that change would create little to no disruption for students. But from where I stand in the classroom, moving staff, restructuring teams, and redistributing teachers absolutely creates disruption. Yes, teachers are professionals. We are certified and capable of teaching different grades and subjects. But when teachers are moved to grade levels they have never taught before or have not taught in years, they must learn new curriculum, new standards, and the developmental needs of a completely different age group. That takes time. Time that could otherwise be spent refining instruction and supporting students. Another sentiment from last week's meeting was that ECSD must think about the long-term future of the district and make sure we are not metaphorically shooting ourselves in the foot. Respectfully, from where many of us stand, rushing into this proposal without the information or clear long-term plan feels less like avoiding that and more like aiming it right at our foot. Our district mission speaks about productive relationships and responsibilities for each learner. Responding to each learner's unique needs. Our core values say honesty and integrity are foundational in all we do. Yet the way this proposal has unfolded has left many staff members feeling the opposite. Whether or not this consolidation moves forward tonight, the uncertainty and lack of clear communication have already damaged the trust across our district. For many of us, Flagview, that is my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up I have is Jessica Lacey.
For the record, my name is Jessica Lacey. Dear Elko County School District Board members, I know you're all in a position that nobody wants to be in. Decisions have to be made that are going to cause pain and be hard to swallow. I don't believe that the Flagview consolidation should be one of them. If this move would provide a bigger cost savings or even keep the district out of the red, I'd have a better understanding, but it doesn't. Pay and possible reduction in staff across the district are still likely to happen. Why dismantle a school and the process when other big steps have to happen? To connect this to sports, this is like telling the second string of a team, we no longer need you. You need to find a different team to go play for. We've appreciated your efforts, but it's time to move on. And regarding that too, as we listened to the presentation about Flagview, the disheartening part for me as a staff member from there is there's no kudos to Flagview. Everything we've tried to bring in that's positive, what we've done as a school, how we've tried to be best for 5th and 6th graders, overlooked. And that to me is really disheartening when I look out at my colleagues and I know what we've done. Looking at the money, I may be wrong, but the $542,000, we already have 4 teachers are leaving, an admin that can step down. That money's saved. Why do we have to move the whole school if those people, if we're not going to rehire them? Lastly, we have the classified staff. If we don't have the reading specialists, which our Lexia Core 5 program is taking care of, that savings is equivalent. We don't have to lose those positions. Impact. Students are heavily impacted by this move. Does it make sense to leave students at their elementary school for 1 more year, send them to a new school for 1 year, and then move them on to middle school? That's a lot of stress on a student and a family in a short amount of time with no consistency. Colleges don't even do this. They typically go from one school for 2 years and then move on. Teachers are also impacted by this move. They're leaving well-equipped classrooms with the needed technology and other supplies to teach their students. Classrooms at other schools could be lacking these supplies, costing movement and a lot of reorganization. Ripple effect. The Flagview consolidation will cause a ripple effect across the whole district. Each school will feel the impact and there are wider consequences. I also believe this will cause a loss of faith in the district and a loss of certified staff members who are going to look for other ways to be able to take care of their families. Temporary solution. I've heard this again and again. Flagview is a temporary solution. Well, we've been around for 18 years now. I don't think it is a temporary solution. And as we can see up there on the board, if productions go back up and we have attendance back, guess who comes back? Flagview is a 5th and 6th grade school. So why remove a temporary solution when it's became ingrained inside the community? As I believe if we're gonna take Flagview out, you take the whole thing. You don't take part of the ship, you take the whole ship. So with that, I am against the Flagview consolidation. I think we can find the money elsewhere and we can leave our school together. Yes, there's still gonna be hurt and pain, but there's differences. Thank you.
Tracy Collier-Williams.
Hi, my name is Tracy Collier-Williams, and I come to you this evening not just as a teacher at Elko High School, but also as a parent of a fourth grader at Northside Elementary. My fourth grader has been looking forward to the transition to Flagview all year. It's been a transition that the entire fourth grade class has been looking forward to, building up to their big trip at the end of the year, and then all of a sudden, thrown upon them at the end of February is, oh, by the way, you might not be going. This has caused an immense amount of disruption amongst these students. I don't know about the other elementary schools. I do know prior to being that this is our first year here and we've just moved here, that I've heard prior that Mountain View was one of the major reasons that Flagview needed to be built 18 years ago. I can say right now that Northside is very, very full. They're so full that my daughter cannot go to the Boys and Girls Club after school because there's no room on the bus. So if the busing is going to be eliminated as an issue, it's not going to be eliminated at Northside because there's not enough room on the buses for busing to after-school activities. She is not provided busing. Because I'm a staff member, I am unable to go pick her up because I have IEP meetings and I have contracted hours. So I need to rely on the kindness of others to be able to take care of her, to pick her up. That is going to cause an additional year of major issues. I was very much looking forward to Flagview next year, being that it's just up the street from the high school. We were all looking forward to this. So as a staff member and a parent, these are things that we were really looking forward to. And as the space, it's going to cause huge disruption. It's not just going to cause disruption amongst the teachers, it's going to cause disruption among the elementary schools. Teachers PLC together, personal or community learning. We work together in teams, not just fifth grade teams and sixth grade teams, but also curriculum teams, math, social studies, science. We work together to co-align our curriculum. These fifth grade teachers are going to enter a school and going to be the new guy. I am currently the new guy in 2 departments as well as special education. Although I'm certified in those departments, I am definitely the outlier and it is not fun.
That's your time. Thank you. I have some public comment to read in. I'll start with yours. Trustee Ballard, you had one.
I apologize if I cough. This was an email sent in. Dear Mrs. Ballard, I am writing to express my strong concern regarding the proposal to consolidate Flagview Intermediate School. This decision would disrupt a school that is currently doing meaningful and important work for the students who rely heavily on the support and stability that Flagview provides. The Elko County School District is reportedly facing an approximately $11 million deficit. While we understand that financial challenges require difficult decisions, consolidating a school like Flagview and reducing the support available to students who need strong teacher relationships the most is not a wise solution. Removing resources from the students who rely on them most does not solve the underlying financial issues facing the district. In any well-run organization or business, when financial problems arise, leadership looks first to reduce cost from the top down. You do not cut the workforce that produces the value or delivers the service. In education, teachers in the schools that serve students are the core of that work. Removing or disrupting them harms the very mission the district is supposed to protect. Additionally, if the superintendent and district leadership did not see a deficit of this magnitude coming well in advance, that raises serious concerns about financial oversight and planning. Leadership accountability must be part of the conversation. Those responsible for managing the district's finances should be the first to answer for how the district arrived in this situation. Simply put, the disruption to students, teachers, and families caused by consolidating Flagview Intermediate School is not justified by the potential savings. The juice is simply not worth the squeeze. I urge the board to reconsider this proposal and instead look for solutions that protect students, preserve effective programs, and hold leadership accountable for their financial management. Sincerely, Beth Wines.
Thank you. You have one here, Trustee Destrup.
My name is Tammy Craycraft Dickinson. I'm an ECSD parent, PTA president, former ECSD student, and former ECSD board trustee. I do not support the proposed consolidation. This plan disproportionately impacts Elko's K-6 students while producing only minimal savings for ECSD. District spending has grown by millions beyond its revenue, and Elko's youngest students are being asked to bear the consequences. Overspending occurred under the direction of this board. Asking one community to pay for these decisions is unreasonable and only deepens the community's distrust of ECSD. There are more equitable options that would produce meaningful savings while protecting class sizes and staffing. The insurance fund deficit has been compounding for years and is now unmanageable. Cutting 5 certified positions will not fix it. Approving 11% raises without fully budgeting for step increases, PERS, and insurance costs, despite ongoing enrollment declines, delayed necessary attrition and worsened the problem. This is a district-wide problem, and the solution must be district-wide. I urge the ECSD Board of Trustees to pursue solutions that produce significant and immediate savings rather than small cuts that only postpone addressing the real issue. The insurance fund must be fixed now, or ECSD will never get ahead of this.
All right, thank you. And I have one more here. To the members of the board and superintendent, my name is Hillary Urarte. I've been a 5th grade educator at Flagview for 10 years, but I'm also the parent of 3 children who have all walked these halls. I cannot speak for myself tonight because I have to attend my daughter's Honor Society induction. I believe that moving 5th grade back to feeder schools is a massive mistake, not just for my classroom, but for the entire Elko community. When my oldest transitioned to Flagview, I was nervous. Change is scary, but I quickly learned that providing my children the freedom to grow in a secure, intermediate environment was the best thing for their development. Before Flagview, my kids were hesitant to join sports or community activities because they only knew the small circle of kids from their elementary school. After Flagview, they became outgoing. They realized that on any given team, they'd likely know the majority of their peers. As a teacher, I see this same transformation every year. I meet anxious parents at open house who are worried about the big move, but by first quarter conferences, they are singing our praises. They report that their children are becoming independent, resilient, and mature. They aren't seeing the hurtful maturity people fear. They are seeing the helpful maturity that comes from stepping into a larger world. Since COVID, we've been rightfully obsessed with student mental health and the rise of screen time isolation. So I have to ask, how is keeping students in an isolated, smaller community where they can't branch out or meet a diverse range of peers good for their well-being? By age 10, my own children were desperate to leave their elementary schools. They found the house systems infantizing. They didn't want to attend assemblies for picture book authors or go to the May Day dance with 5-year-olds and their parents. They wanted to grow up. It is our duty to let them do that in the safe middle ground that Flagview provides. Furthermore, Flagview is a true community school. We serve every family in Elko with a 5th or 6th grader. We are at capacity with 23 to 24 students per class. We don't have a homeschooling problem. In fact, in my 10 years here, I've seen countless students return to the district specifically for 5th grade. If parents are ending their homeschooling journey to join us, it tells me one of 2 things. Either the 5th grade curriculum is suddenly too advanced for parents to teach, or the families were unsatisfied with their feeder schools and did not want to afford them another opportunity. Finally, we need to address the elephant in the room. I find it hard to believe the district woke up in an $11 million deficit overnight. As an employee, I assume there were people whose entire job was to prevent this. Why are those people not the ones updating their resumes? Why am I, a classroom teacher, being asked to shoulder the consequences of a problem I didn't create? Central office claims they're cutting costs, but moving people to different positions or accepting retirements isn't a cut, it's a shell game. True cuts mean eliminating non-essential roles that don't directly impact student success. In this financial climate, we cannot afford the many 6-figure positions working at Central while we dismantle programs and uproot schools that are actually working. I ask the board to look at the top of the pyramid before you chip away at the foundation. Our teachers and students should not be the first.
I'm sorry, that's the time.
Or only line of sacrifice. Respectfully, Hillary.
We have
Aurelia Floyd, this one just came in. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aurelia Floyd. My mom is one of the Flagview teachers. I've seen many sad people. I have an aunt, Cindy, who is sad. She is one of the fifth grade teachers who you will move. Plus, will you find the comment my mom sent? It is to one of you guys. I don't know which one, but that is all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment on this item?
Oh, I'm sorry, my paper wasn't called. I put in for comments.
Go ahead and come on up.
Okay. Hello, members of the school board. I would like to read the email aloud that was not read by a board member. So I'd like to address Teresa and the comment that was made that Flagview is a short-term solution and is not working. This assertion is not supported by achievement data. These statements have a significant impact on our educators' morale. Because I'm a sixth grade ELA teacher, I will only cover ELA data. So according to the Nevada Accountability Portal, Flagview Intermediate shows strong performance in ELA data. So first, Flagview achieved 41.1% in ELA, outperforming Spring Creek Elementary, which had 36.1 achievement growth, Sage 32.3, and Spring Creek Middle School 26.1. Of course, performing comparably to Liberty Peak at 41.8. Flagview maintained the ELA achievement, so this does not match Ms. Scott's comment. So first off, Mountain View had a 41.2, Grandma had a 35.7, Northside had 33% growth, achievement, and Southside 41.1. So they stay top dog at Flagview. In addition, board records show that in 2006, Flagview was established as an intermediate school, not a short-term solution to the building. Flagview has achieved a level of stability that other schools have not. Our Flagview team has remained, our fifth grade Flagview team has remained entirely consistent for 3 years, and our sixth grade staff has seen very little turnover, unlike other schools. Under the leadership of Travis Monette, Justin Streeter, and Josh Krantz, we have built a community where staff feel welcome and trusted. Consolidating the school would have a negative ripple effect throughout the entire district. I urge you to consider the strength of the community that Flagview has built when making your decision. We are not detrimental to our students. Thank you for your time and your dedication.
Any further comment? All right, we'll go ahead and open this up to the board for, I'm sorry. Didn't see you there. Go ahead. Please state your name.
My name is Zach Gerber. I'm a parent of 2 children that are in Elko County School District. I know this is not a favorable comment tonight with all those that are here, but I support this budget item for 2 reasons. The measure will result, as we've seen, in over $800,000 in savings, and there will be no lost certified positions. That's an incredible achievement. And on top of this cost-saving measure will actually have a positive outcome for students in the district, which rarely happens with budget cuts. I know of several families that have taken their children out of Elko County School District because they're concerned about their children moving at 5th grade into a middle school. I know that many other families are considering that choice as well, or in a lottery system right now, hoping that they'll be able to move so their 5th grade children do not have to go to a middle school. And I'm not saying that to disparage the intermediate school at all. I know many families that have had positive time there and students that have had positive times at the school. However, it's a reality that people are moving because of that. Keeping people here at the district and also having hopefully students come back will actually help with the budget as well, because the budget is based on peers, or our peers being at the school, the pupils being at the school. So with that, I would ask that you look favorably upon this measure and consider families that are leaving the district and that will actually stay or come back if this is a possibility. And we need all these teachers still, and they're going to remain. And I know that they'll be welcome at the elementary school. It'll be uncomfortable to move, but I know that they'll be welcome there. Thank you.
Any further public comment? All right, board. This is open for discussion.
Oh, no one's gonna go, I'll go. I'll start. I actually wrote things down this time instead of trying to look through my notes, so it's a little more cohesive. So I'll just read what I have put together. As everyone knows, the district's facing serious budget challenges. While it is important that we learn from our past, it's equally important that we move forward and work toward restoring a healthy and sustainable budget. I want to be clear that I'm not minimizing the seriousness of this situation. And I truly appreciate everyone who has taken the time to send emails, speak with me in person, or call to share suggestions, concerns, and perspectives. I have read every email that has been sent to me. In fact, I've read many of them more than once because I understand how important this decision is. I've also reached out to others to gather additional information and perspectives. These decisions are not easy, as I've done with other significant decisions, such as the hiring of a superintendent and the move to a 4-day school week. I carefully considered the pros and cons and focus on what is best for our students first and foremost. After all, without students, none of us would have a job. I also recognize that for many people, this issue is very personal. But as a board member, I must set aside emotions and evaluate the situation as objectively as possible. From what I understand, Flagview was originally planned to be a 6-8 school when Adobe Middle School opened. Concerns about zoning at that time led to the decision to make Flagview a 5-6 school to help address overcrowding in elementary schools. There was also a plan to build a new elementary school, but that school was never built, and Flagview remained configured as a 5-6 campus. I also want to acknowledge the strong sense of community among the staff at Flagview. It is clear from the emails and the people here tonight and their many comments that you view your school as a family. That dedication to one another and to your students is admirable. If changes were to occur, they should not be viewed as a punishment for the staff at Flagview. Good teaching is good teaching, regardless of the building in which it takes place. I understand that changing grade levels or schools can be difficult. However, many effective practices, such as collaboration and team teaching, can still occur in other settings. Some individuals have shared that they would consider leaving the profession if they could not remain at Flagview, and that's difficult to hear. Unfortunately, in challenging financial times, decisions sometimes have to be made that not everyone will agree with. Looking ahead, I believe this situation also provides an opportunity to think strategically about the future of Flagview. Moving forward, there should be a clear long-term plan for the school. Whether that plan ultimately involves configurations such as 6-8, K-6, or another model, these possibilities should be carefully studied and presented to the board. Our communities have unique needs, and our decision should reflect what works best for them rather than simply striving for uniformity across the district. There is research suggesting that keeping 5th graders in an elementary setting can benefit students. Studies on school transitions show that moving students to a new building during late elementary or early adolescence can sometimes lead to temporary dips in academic performance and increased stress. Organizations such as the Association for Middle-Level Education have noted that many students benefit from remaining in a stable environment for a longer period. At ages 10 and 11, many students still benefit from stable routines, strong, consistent relationships with adults, smaller school environments, integrated social-emotional support. This can be helpful for English learners, students receiving special education services, and students who experience anxiety. An additional year in a familiar setting can support both academic growth and emotional readiness. I've also heard from many parents and community members who support keeping 5th graders in elementary schools for one more year. Several comments reflected the belief that fifth graders are still young and benefit from the nurturing environment elementary schools provide while they continue developing independence. These viewpoints do not diminish the work being done at Flagview, which many have shared as just recently producing strong results for students. This proposal does not eliminate positions, but instead would involve transfers. While transfers can certainly be difficult for staff, this approach preserves jobs while helping the district address its financial challenges. Finally, the individuals who have the knowledge, experience, and expertise to provide the board with recommendations are the professionals working in the district office. It's their responsibility to analyze the data, present options, and help guide the district through these challenges. These are difficult conversations, but they are necessary. My commitment is to continue listening, reviewing the information presented, and making the decision that I believe best supports our students and the long-term stability of our district. Thank you for letting me speak.
Go ahead, Trustee Bellinger.
Okay, I, like Susan, typed up my remarks because I feel like this is too important not to have my thoughts clearly together. These are my thoughts and conclusions after reading every email, talking to many people at school sites, talking to lots of parents, and so I'll just share with you my thoughts. I want to begin by acknowledging the difficult position our district is currently in. We are facing a serious budget crisis, and I know everyone involved is trying to find responsible solutions. These decisions are not easy, and I appreciate the work that has gone into addressing this problem. At the same time, I believe the decisions we make as a school board must prioritize what is best for students first, while also supporting our staff and making sure we are thoughtful and deliberate in the process. The proposal before us is to move fifth grade back to the elementary schools and convert the intermediate school into a sixth grade academy. While I understand the reasoning behind trying to find efficiencies, I have significant concerns about this option. Currently, Elko elementary schools serve kindergarten through fourth grade. Under this proposal, students would attend K through 5 elementary school, then move to sixth grade academy, then transition again to 7th and 8th grade middle school, and finally to the 9th through 12th grade high school. That would mean students changing schools 3 separate times before even reaching the high school. Our community has expressed their concern over so many transitions, and this proposal does not remedy that problem. Additionally, there are no other schools in our state that serve only 6th grade. That alone gives me pause. When we make structural changes like this, we should feel confident that we are moving toward a model that has proven success and stability. What I'm hearing from many people in the community is support for elementary schools serving either K through 5 or K through 6. Research also suggests that K through 6th grade elementary models tend to perform better for students. Others have suggested that if 6th grade is not kept at the elementary schools, it would make more sense to place 6th grade with the 7th and 8th grade at the middle school. Unfortunately, as our superintendent said, our middle school currently does not have the space to accommodate 6th grade without adding portable classrooms, which our community has also strongly expressed opposition to. Because of that, I believe it would be worthwhile to step back and take a more comprehensive look at our facilities and enrollment patterns before making a major structural change. For example, one of our Elko elementary schools currently has 11 empty classrooms, and another elementary school has only about 200 students who are zoned to attend that school, with roughly 100 additional students who attend through variances. Rather than rushing into a new structure, I believe we should take the time to carefully study enrollment numbers, attendance boundaries, and our facilities. It may be possible to adjust school zones and explore consolidation options that would allow us to serve kindergarten through 6th grade at our elementary schools. While the superintendent's presentation outlines the possibility that if enrollment continues to decline, Flagview Intermediate may need to close completely, I believe there may be another option worth exploring. Would it be possible to close one of the smaller elementary schools and convert the Flagview building into an additional elementary school to better balance the enrollment across the district? The Flagview facility offers several clear advantages, including 2 full gymnasiums, while one of our current elementary schools relies on a small multi-purpose room used for both PE and lunch, and that doesn't even accommodate a full basketball court or the number of students it currently serves. In addition, the Flagview campus is located directly across the street from the Boys and Girls Club, which provides valuable after-school opportunities for many of our students. Because of those factors, if we ever reach a worst-case scenario where a school must close, we need to make sure we are carefully evaluating all of our facilities. My concern is that without a more thorough review, we could end up closing a school and losing a facility that offers important advantages for our students and families. I'm also concerned that because of the urgency of the budget situation, we may be moving too quickly toward a decision that could create unnecessary disruption. If we implement a 6th grade academy now and later determine that 6th grade should return to elementary schools or move to the middle school, we will have disrupted our system twice. Teachers may be required to transfer schools now, only to be asked to move again later. That kind of instability affects our staff, our students, and our families. If disruption is unavoidable, we should aim to do it once and to do it thoughtfully. There are also other areas where I believe we should look closely for potential savings before making such a significant structural change. For example, we currently spend approximately $325,000 bringing in retired teachers who are paid around $2,500 per month to work with students on reading. Instead of continuing that model, I would like us to consider eliminating the LLC reading specialist positions and utilizing our Lexia reading program more fully, which is already showing promising results for our students. Also, years ago, our district trained and invited parents to come into our schools to read with children and help support literacy. I believe many parents would welcome the opportunity to do that again. Inviting parents into our schools not only provides valuable support for students, but also strengthens the connection between families and our schools. Encouraging that kind of involvement could help reinforce one of the pillars that we've been working to strengthen as a district, family and community engagement. We also know that a significant part of the budget challenge we are facing is a declining enrollment, as some parents are choosing to homeschool their children or to send them to charter schools. Inviting families into our classrooms and allowing them to see firsthand the wonderful things that are happening in our schools may help rebuild trust and encourage families to keep their children in our district. I also believe we should look intentionally for ideas from the people who are closest to the day-to-day operations of our schools. I would like to see something like an administrative council formed to help identify areas where money can be saved. I have heard from administrators that they feel somewhat left out of the process, and many believe they have ideas that could help address the budget situation within their own campuses. In fact, a Flagview administrator has indicated that there may be opportunities to save more than $500,000 without making immediate structural changes to the intermediate school. I believe those ideas deserve to be explored before we move forward with a plan that would significantly reshape our school system. I also want to acknowledge the budget reality that we are facing. Approximately 85% of our district budget goes towards salaries and benefits. That means addressing this crisis will ultimately require difficult conversations in that area. However, my hope is that before we move towards reductions in force or salary decreases or anything in the like, we carefully examine every other possible area for savings. If compensation adjustments do become necessary, I believe those sacrifices should be shared across the system, and I stated that before in a previous board meeting, beginning at the top and including directors, administrators, certified staff, and classified staff. I also want to emphasize that teachers are the single most important factor in student success within the walls of our schools, parents being the single most important factor in general. They already are being asked to do more than ever before. Many teachers will tell you that they struggle just to find time in the day to meet all of the expectations placed on them. As I have a friend who said she can barely find the time to even use the restroom in the middle of the day. As we work through these financial challenges, we must do everything we can to support them and protect the learning conditions for our students. Class size and classroom support matter, and the decisions we make will directly affect those realities. I believe we can address this budget crisis while still taking the time to carefully study our options and to make decisions that will serve our district well, not just next year or the year after, but for many years to come. It may be that some level of restructuring, including moving 5th and 6th grade, will ultimately be necessary and what is best for our students. But a decision of this magnitude should be the result of a careful study and long-term planning. At this point, I believe this proposal is moving too quickly and has not yet been fully thought through. Let's not create more disruption than necessary for our students and staff. If we need to make a change, let's be confident we only need to do it once.
Yeah. That'll be, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public meeting. We're not going to have any more of that. It's not a popularity contest. There are people on both sides of the issue. I appreciate that everyone's passionate, but I would ask that you please stop the outbursts. Thank you. This side of the room.
Y'all know I'm going to say something, so why don't y'all take it? All righty, here goes. Thank you for having the prepared statements, because I was looking at that as well. But I'll be honest with you, I was still waiting on how I was going to make this decision. There are still 4 more board members that get to speak, so while I go through this doesn't mean this is a final decision, but this is where my thoughts are. And as Dr. Byers may be able to attest, while I'm listening to comments, I was continuing to write what I'm saying now. So how does this situation impact students? I realize that I am not an expert at reading MAP scores, and also that it is not an apples to apples comparison, though my reading of the MAP scores seem to indicate that Flagview is outperforming most elementary schools in both reading and math. With that said, I've heard dozens of comments from educators, medical professionals, and/or parents that 5th graders are not ready for middle school. I realize that there is much that I don't know, that I don't understand how it's unhealthy for students attending Flagview, but not a K-8 school in nearly each of our other communities, or Liberty Peak with a departmentalized 5th grade. I'm not calling out any specific school. I want to be very clear on that. Last time I got in trouble for, saying schools. I'm just saying these are the realities of where we are. Keeping kids at the same school certainly seems to be less difficult for students than a transition, as identified at our K-8 schools across the district. And so does this indicate that perhaps we should consider a K-8 school for at least one of our schools here in Elko? I don't have that answer. I also don't have an answer as to if kids would benefit from a 6-8 school model in Elko for both of our intermediate schools, similar to what Spring Creek community does. So how does this benefit students? I don't know yet. So then how does this impact our staff? From my understanding, at least 6 different school teams will be impacted by this plan, and oftentimes through change, people rise to the occasion and become stronger. This is a potential, and should this item pass, I hope that each person impacted is able to come out of this better after time and with the ability to look back without the immediate emotional impact. How does this impact the administrator pipeline? Because this has worried me for a number of years. At best, this will remove 2 potential administrators from their administrative positions, even though it may only be temporary. I don't feel that that is ideal. And what about the capacity issue? Using the current enrollment and the MGT study from a number of years ago, Flagview is currently overutilized by 20%. In a move, all Elko schools would have a utilization of 102% or less, with all but Elko High School and Southside being less than 90% utilization. So a move such as this certainly would better utilize our capacity. But is it the best use of asset? I recognize that there is space at each of the Elko elementary schools, though it seems to involve more modular units than are currently being utilized at Flagview, a situation which I would prefer to avoid. I also am not comfortable with the unused space at Flagview should this pass. All of this is to say that I do not see this as a clearly superior option. In analyzing the financial data I believe that there are savings that will reduce the $837,448.70 to less than $250,000, a more easily manageable number. I believe that there are other ways to find those savings. I know that we are in a timing issue, and that I know we need to find a solution, and that delays jeopardize more than just this issue. But I am not ready to vote in favor of this proposal.
Are we going in order now?
Anybody who wants to.
Everyone's looking at me, so I was wondering what
Looking
was
at all
going
three
on.
of you. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, man. Okay, so I did not prepare a statement. I have made rules and looked at my notes that I have on my phone, and so here's how this goes. Everybody's laid out all these analytical ways of looking, and so I could go through numbers that I have on my phone, but I won't. I will boil down that there are a lot of emails that I received from the public that are in favor of this proposal. So as much as I'd like to sit here and read 26 emails, the support is pretty split across the community. So like many things this board has faced, it's a pretty split topic as we move forward. I will say some of them hold more weight for me when they are healthcare professionals talking about issues with fifth graders and their practice. I will say that does weigh more on folks that have pulled their kids prior, so they will not show in the percentages, so that does have weight there. Also, when we're comparing fifth and sixth to a complete K through 5 or K through 4, that doesn't, those numbers then again for me kind of they don't hold as much weight. So for the staff, I get it. It's your job, is where you're at. You love what you do, and I totally don't want to diminish that. But most of my emails that I got that were from the staff, and I would expect that because you love what you do. So as I sit here and talk and I weigh back and forth, staying primary on what we're looking at, which is, are we going to do this consolidation proposal, and staying within the means of this meeting. I'm just telling you that what I'm trying to tell you is that I have spent hours on this. I have spent sleepless night on this. I have searched on my phone numerous times because that's my connection to the internet, and that's my connection to my email, that's my connection to people, and that's my connection to the public. And so, I have a data pad here too that I have information on. So we have spent our time. I just didn't spend time to make a prepaid statement. It's just not my style. So I want you to know that I'm not making this lightly. It's not a personal attack, okay? Just like I've said this entire time as we go through the list that Mr. Anderson did earlier, his presentation. Again, I know it's personal because it's your livelihood, but it's not a personal anything. We have to make a decision. We have to make them sooner than later. We can play the blame game later. You know what? Right now, there's plenty of openings for you to come and sit in this and have people blame you for that too as well. So I'll put that out there as well. So we are going to have to make a decision, and it's probably not going to be very comfortable. And whatever the board's will is, that's what the board's will. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay, well, I don't have anything ready either. Usually don't prepare before something to say before I come here. I look at everything, look at numbers, and usually come thinking I'm going to vote some way, and then can get here and then vote another way. It's just how I do it. And first, I want to acknowledge Flaggview. It's obvious that Status School is a family now, and you've been doing a great job. It's nothing personal. But we have to make a decision. We are in a reality that we have a budget problem here. And we have to make a decision. It's either we vote today or next week or in a month. And if we don't vote for Flaggview, we're going to vote for this other stuff. And someone's going to be upset. Someone's going to be not going to like what we decide. But we have to make a decision, and it's gonna be a hard one. And it's not something that we wanna do. It's not something that I'm not happy to be up here and have to make a decision. I'm not. And I don't think any of us is happy about what's going on right now. But we're here. It's a reality, and we have to face it. And I don't know how others, if you don't want to vote today, but we have to make a decision soon. We're in a situation that we have to try to fix what's going on. And it's not something that we did wrong. It's something that is happening, and just to blame someone right now, it's just not going to help us at all. And just say thank you, Flaggview. You're doing great. Nothing personal. It really hurts. But whatever decision we make, it's going to be one thinking about what's the best for everyone. Thank you.
First of all, I appreciate all of the emails, all of the stops in the grocery store or anywhere I am, phone calls, the comments tonight, everything. I appreciate that. I'm also not one to pre-prepare because I want to come and I want to hear everyone's input. And hearing it tonight, hearing it, over the last little while as we have discussed possibilities with challenges that we have in the district. I will say, and I have stated this already, and I continue to receive this kind of information, that the majority of people who have reached out to me support keeping fifth graders in the elementary schools. They support having that extra year in elementary. I appreciate Brooke's thoughts about a K-6 model. I think a K-6 model is fantastic. I would love to see a K-6 model if that was an option. And maybe it is. Maybe the board's going to look at things tonight and say, hey, let's look at that and see things a little different. One of the comments was if you're going to take part of it, take all of it. Or there were also comments about, we're a family, and I can see that you have done great things, that you have worked hard. And I believe we have, and I've stated this a lot of times, we have amazing educators in this district who work hard for our students. When we look at what is best for students, that varies sometimes from community to community, and it definitely varies from child to child. But I will just state again, overwhelming majority of comments that I have received support keeping the fifth graders in the elementary setting. And it is, as far as a situation with the least disruption to students that we have talked about, this is the least disruption to students. They are already in those schools. No one's going to be moving back to a school. Students who are already at a school will stay there unless they were already going to be moving on, like the sixth graders that would naturally be moving to seventh grade. So I feel like this is a possibility that we obviously need to look at and discuss as a board. And I definitely support keeping the fifth graders in their current elementary schools and looking to the future of what, we're not deciding tonight what else could happen with Flagview, but it is on the, on our agenda to determine whether or not we will, consolidate and keep the fifth graders in their current schools. So again, I support that. Like Dr. Byers said, I've received information from medical professionals who said they see a huge uptick in fifth grade and also sixth grade mental health in Elko. And whatever that transition issue is, that's something you can't debate. If you have a medical professional that sees those kids and sees issues, that's information we have to look at as well. That's important. Again, I will just say I support keeping the fifth graders in their elementary schools and looking at it from that perspective.
I'm going to jump in here. I talked about some questions I would have last week, and I'm going to go ahead and ask those, Mr. Anderson. I basically asked you, what are the long-term benefits and plan? We have the plan, but can you talk about the long-term benefits of this as opposed to doing something else, whatever that something else may be?
Sure, sorry if that wasn't clear. So I think the long-term benefits are by, I also am of the opinion that the younger students should remain at an elementary school. I think that has greater benefits for the students. I also think that the sooner we're able to start some sort of cost-saving measure, the longer that savings compounds. That isn't just a one-time $800,000 savings that gets realized over repeating fiscal years, assuming enrollment hangs in an area where we can continue to do that. And I think that I was going to say this during my superintendent's report, but this is a great opportunity, so thanks for giving it to me. I think that my experience has been that the greater community desire is to have our kids at elementary schools. And I also want to say that I have done nothing but defend Flagview to people in the community from a standpoint of how good the school is. I've heard lots of negative things about Flagview, and they are always met with, I don't think you've been to Flagview recently, or I'm not sure you know about the great teachers that are at Flagview, or did you realize Flagview's doing the following? I moved here 6.5 years ago, and my oldest child was enrolled in 6th grade at Flagview, and before I even enrolled him, I heard the negative things about Flagview. I say all these things not because I think there's anything wrong with Flagview. That's the point I'm trying to make. None of this is about what school is better than another school, because just as disrespectful as it would be to say anything bad about Flagview, it would be similar to say that one other school isn't as good because a certain achievement score hasn't happened there. We're comparing apples to oranges when we talk about different communities. It's inconsistent to say this is happening here and therefore that means it's better. It's not better. I've been very public about my lack of interest in what the accountability ratings are for Nevada. So while those are valuable data points for good things that are happening, I do not think it makes one school better than another. There are amazing educators at Flagview. There are amazing educators at Sage and at Spring Creek Elementary and at Northside and at every other school that was named throughout this conversation. I have 3 students, well, 2 who have passed through Flagview, and they had different experiences, but I do not have a negative thing to say about either of those. I have a student who is currently a 6th grader at Flagview, and he is thoroughly enjoying his experience. And I have a 4th grade student who also was looking forward to going to Flagview next year. And so just as you guys are having to do, you, the board members, are having to do, I also, despite knowing these data points of my kids, their experiences, I have to remove emotion from this decision and this proposal. It is not about the quality of Flagview. I have the utmost respect for the administrators of Flagview. I have never found myself arguing or angry with a teacher at Flagview. I have probably visited Flagview almost as many times as any school in the district. I've spent a lot of time in that building, and none of this is about that. So all that to say, the long-term benefit is not related to how good Flagview is. All of our schools are good. We have great teachers, and that includes the teachers at Flagview. And should things happen with the reconfiguration or consolidation of things, we have excellent teachers who will bless and benefit other campuses and the students they were potentially going to see next year anyway. There will be a lot of benefit to that. I understand that there's discomfort, but I think there's long-term benefit from savings. I think there's long-term benefit from community perception about where they want their 5th grade students in Elko. And I think there's just long-term benefit to having a model that is generally more accepted and conducive. And none of this has people are making it about things that it's not about. And I understand why. But that's, from the lens that I've been tasked at looking at this through, that's not what it's about. So I don't want to make it about that.
So you can say this, and my original question was, is it just to save money or is it good inherently? But you've kind of described that. It's not just to save money.
I believe that having fifth graders at elementaries is inherently a better option.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a hard one for me. I came out a little early today. I spent an hour at Flagview for lunch. Got to hang out with the fifth and sixth graders and with admin and talk to a few people. And I got to see what a family you really are. It's not my first visit there, but it's my first one in the recent few months anyway. I think it was last school year I was there. I saw a bunch of well-adjusted, happy kids enjoying themselves at lunch and socializing and in groups. You know, it was really a nice experience. It was hard too because in seeing everybody there, you know, I can see it in your eyes. You guys are wearing this on your sleeves. You can't help it. This is such a big change. This has been a really hard process regarding all the emails and all the, boy, you say one thing and it just goes crazy. You get misquoted, you get, or taken out of context, or you take like somebody, we're trying to brainstorm up here. We're trying to be as transparent as we can be. And then somebody says something and it's the, you know, it just goes crazy. We talk about, they're natural questions and we're all learning here. We're all learning on the fly sometimes because for most of us, we haven't really been through this. And it's hard not to just say what's on your mind. But throughout this process, I've been listening to the proposal, and this proposal is from our superintendent. It's his recommendation. He's outlined to me that what I'm most worried about is students, and I believe it is a fact that the disruption to students would be the least with this proposal. Because the kids are staying where they were. So folks that wrote in about traffic problems and all that, it doesn't apply. They're at that school. Talking about admin though, I talked to admin today and I talked about some of the concerns there, and I have some concerns. Are we spreading them too thin? With the certified staff, it's really hard to deal with the, I'm so trying not to make this an emotional decision. I'm not here to make an emotional decision. I'm supposed to make a practical decision. And y'all make it hard because there's so much passion, so much feeling in this. This matters, no matter, like what you said, what we do here, no matter what, somebody's gonna be unhappy. So there's pros and cons on both sides, and this is an amazingly tough decision, and on top of everything else that we're looking at. So I think that's all I'm going to add there right now. I'm going to reopen it if anybody else has anything to add.
Mr. President, if I may. DJ, have we looked at 6-8? This doesn't resolve the concerns from the fifth grade Flagview folks. But looking at the utilization, using the current, or at least using the enrollment as of March 3 of 26, a 6-8 split, keeping fifth grade at the elementary schools, but going to what my understanding was kind of the original intent of Adobe and Flagview both being 6 through 8. From a stability standpoint, from a longevity standpoint, from a ability to handle increased enrollment, I don't see very many negatives there. I see that there would be better transportation options. Have we done an analysis on 6-8? And are we prepared to be able to do anything on that?
Are you asking me if in addition to doing the thing we're talking about now to also redistribute 6th graders to Adobe and redistribute 7th and 8th graders from Adobe to Flagview.
Yes. If we're making a change, then let's make a change.
My guiding principle was least disruption, and so that would increase disruption.
And if we have to move back, we increase disruption as well, correct?
Yes, if you're predicting the future, then yes. I'm not predicting the future. I'm talking about the least disruption now for a budget issue that we're having in this exact moment, and that we can create savings from at this exact moment. And I have ideas for the future, but that is contingent upon what the future holds.
Is there an indication at some point that you think Flagview would be 6-8?
I had it as an option in my proposal, so the answer is yes.
Okay.
Evidently, that mic's not working. I just want to restate that I think that we can see savings in other areas. The administrator at Flagview, one of the administrators, indicated that they could save over $500,000 without making this change. We still have the option of the LLCs, which I highly suggest that we end that practice. I think we can, I know we're in a budget crisis right now. I think we can find the savings that we need and give ourselves as a district more time to do a comprehensive review of everything and to make sure that if these changes need to happen, we're only disrupting the district once. I don't love the idea of all these transitions. Our community already doesn't like how many times our kids transition. This doesn't help that at all. They still transition just as many times. And you're gonna have 6th grade at a school all by itself. And then in 2 years, figuring out, this model doesn't really work and having to reinvent the wheel and figure out to send 6th graders either to the junior high or back to the elementary schools and revamp everything again and ask these teachers to throw their names on a transfer list again. I just really want to emphasize that I think as a board, we need to really think about that and make sure that if we are going to make changes that are that significant, that we have had the time to do all the research and all the things that we need to make sure that this is a one-time thing and not something that happens again in 2 years. Because look at the morale of our staff already. This affects students. If we do this again in 2-3 years, I don't see the benefit in that.
I just want to throw out that what you're saying implies that these guys haven't done anything. So you're implying that these guys haven't sat down, they haven't looked at anything, that they haven't been monitoring anything. You're implying that this is a snap decision that we're making. You're implying that these guys didn't come out in December and say, we have to look at these. And that the superintendent's gonna have his group and they're gonna sit down. That's what you're implying, that we haven't done that. And you're also implying that you know the future in that you know what's gonna happen next year and you know what's gonna happen the next year and the year after that. There's so many things on the table. That's why Mr. Anderson is very smart in not saying he can't predict the future. Because the state of Nevada is talking about passing vouchers, which will again impact how this district is funded. They're also implying that they're not going to, so we have a huge fight at the state at that point. We have a community as a whole that is withdrawing their students within the nation. The trend is not supposed to change, so that's even more money that's supposed to go. So for us to delay things then implies that it actually puts us in a worse spot because now we're gonna have to find more money based on trends as opposed to just, we need to do what we need to do for now and figure out what we need to do next year because we can't. I'm not predicting the future. I'm just telling you what is out there right now. And what you're saying is, we're not making the best smart decision we can now, and we also know the future, and we have no idea. We have to make the decision for today, for tomorrow, because this is the best we have right now. This is the data we have, and these guys have all sat around doing it. I haven't. I don't pretend to. The Excel spreadsheets that Cassie has, oh my goodness. I couldn't even pretend to work on that. I couldn't even pretend. So this is the data we have with the best information we have. We have a superintendent telling us that this is our best options. It's pretty much the best of the worst because we're in this position. So unless we get some windfall from the state, which everyone makes a joke about at every community level, I just want to make sure the board understands that that's what the implication is of delay, is that these guys haven't done any work associated with it either.
Okay, so just to address that comment, I started out by saying I know everyone involved is trying to find a responsible solution to this and that decisions aren't easy, and I appreciate the work that has gone into addressing this problem. I would not ever imply that they haven't done the work and that they haven't put together the spreadsheets and done deep thinking about this and tried to think of all the solutions. What I am saying is it's been in a process that's probably been pushed into a faster pace than it needs to be, and that we should utilize other savings that aren't on the table right now, like ending the LLC program. We should utilize those savings to give ourselves a little more time to study this through a little bit more. I know that they have probably done tons of work looking into all of this stuff. I just don't think that they've had enough time. I feel like we haven't had enough time to really look through all the options, study it all out so that we can make sure that whatever decision we make as far as restructuring the district, that we have turned over every rock, that we have done we've done all the due process, everything that we need to do to make sure that we have all the information that we need to make the best decision possible. And since this has been kind of such a whirlwind and we have to have things turned into the state by such and such date and all these different things, I feel like that process has been sped up and we haven't had the time that's honestly required to make a decision of this magnitude.
I'm so sorry. Do you mind? Real quick, 2 questions. What's our date that we have to have this in by? Like we have to have this.
We need to have the tentative budget approved by you at the first meeting in April. And so that'll be our next meeting in Elko. We have one more next week. It's certainly not ready for that. And it has to be ready by that next meeting.
So
April.
Time is of the essence as well.
April 7th, yes.
Right. I can see where you're both coming from. However, a move on this agenda item does not preclude us from discussing other future plans immediately. We can still discuss those. We would not take any other action, obviously, tonight because it is not on the agenda. But moving on this does not stop other discussions. And so that being said, I am going to go ahead and make a motion. I move to approve the proposed consolidation of 5th grade from Flagview Intermediate School to the respective Elko Elementary Schools.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
I'm going to try to make this brief. CJ, you and I have had a lot of conversations, and I appreciate your expertise. I appreciate the expertise of the directors as well. You made a comment that this is not just about finances, that you truly believe 5th grade belongs back in elementary schools. I wish this would have come up as a topic prior to the middle of a budget crisis. I will be voting against this, not because I don't think you know what you're doing, but because I think we are going to have to change again. If we're making a change, I'd rather make it once. I respect that you say 5th grade is better in elementary. I'll accept that. I think a 6th grade academy is not the right answer. I think a 6, 7, 8 school would be better. If we're making moves, I understand that it's a little bit more disruptive now. I'd rather see 2, 6, 7, 8 schools and 5th grade back in elementary and make one change. And I don't think that we have the data in front of us to do that. So I will be voting no.
I'd just like to piggyback real quick. Respectfully, Matt, I can guarantee that the education sector will have to change within the next 2 to 5 years. It will absolutely have to change. We will be voting on stuff like this for the next few years that we're on the board. There's no amount of doubt in my mind that things will have to change. The face of education is changing. Unfortunately, we're all cut in the transition of that. And so I fully agree with you on that side. But I just want to make sure that everyone knows you should be looking at the future and where education is going. It will absolutely 100% change over the next few years.
Two thoughts. Not to further complicate the issue, but just to your point, Matt, this, while the proposal I've given, I'm probably just going to upset more people by saying this, but from a procedural standpoint, so we're aware, the proposal I've given represents projected savings for just the consolidation of 5th grade over to the elementary schools. And I have used the term to, the action, sorry, I'm mumbling a little bit here. The wording of the item is just about moving the 5th graders to the elementary schools. So while I am not prepared to talk about what else could be done, should we feel the need to, I think the door is still open for something like you are talking about. The savings here are specific to doing this thing. Now, I'm not proposing that. I want to make sure that's clear. Sweet mother of mystery. I'm just saying that this is what this item does. It consolidates 5th graders back. It does not necessarily do anything else to any other schools. The other thing I will say is, and I'm not trying to paint the situation worse than it is, because I think it could be worse, as tough as that is to believe. The task at hand from December till now was to try to find a way to not be less than 0. And so when we're talking about trying to find these savings elsewhere, I think you're saying the wrong things, people that are saying that. I think you should be saying we should try to find these and more savings elsewhere. I don't think that replacing these savings with another idea is the correct way to go. I think that if we also are passionate about the reading interventionists, then you can be passionate about that, and we can try to do that too if you want to. If you think we can also do something else, we can also do something else. I don't think our goal should be to try to be at 0. It felt like a pretty tall task just to get to 0, and so that is what we've been trying to do. I think as you have identified other things that were not part of the original recommendations, that should not, in my recommendation, be a license to pare back on other suggestions and proposals that have been made. Those are great ways to be in an even better position than we'd hoped to be when we first had this conversation start back in December and the first proposals came out. So I think that the need is to find more savings, not replace savings with other savings.
I found a couple things about just 6th grade out of school. There wasn't a lot of information, at least that I found. And a couple of those schools did some really great things with just having 6th grade, preparing them for junior high. Not saying that they don't do that now, but it sounded like just having 6th grade worked out for them. So I'm not saying it can't work out that way.
Call for the question.
Sure. And according to our policy, anybody who has not had a chance to weigh in once the motion is made does have that chance right now for one time. If anybody has that. Okay. Question has been called. We will be doing not only a voice vote, I will ask for a show of hands. The motion on the table is to approve the proposed consolidation of 5th grade from Flagview Intermediate School to the respective Elko elementary schools. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Chair votes aye. The motion passes. Let's see, moving on to 3.01, Superintendent's Report.
I'm just gonna wait a second. That's okay. Okay, so I just have a few quick things to share. Before I go into those, there were a couple of comments that were made, and I respectfully, I need to correct, I'm so tired of misinformation, and I want to correct misinformation. So one of those, and I dearly love the man who made it, and he knows I love him. SB 231 funding was, even though it wasn't called SB 231 anymore, it was, SB 231 did sunset, but another bill came into place and replaced that, and our teachers and our, let me rephrase that, everyone other than administrators in the district retained that salary increase that the state provided for them with SB 231. So that money did not go away from any of our staff. It continues to elude administrators, but all of our classified and certified personnel continue to receive that. They will next year. I cannot, as long as we're not predicting the future, I cannot predict what the next legislative session will do for that either. So that is one correction. And then despite the fact that it keeps getting brought up, I have not ever, nor am I now, and I will not try to predict the future, but I have not previously nor today proposed a salary decrease for any of our staff. And I still don't think it's a good idea. As long as I'm talking about salaries and staff, there is, an awful lot of people are talking about my salary and the salaries of administrators at our district, not just administrators at our district office, but they say people at central office. And so I just want to clarify something there, that I'll talk about not me first. Every person who works in our district, whether they are classified, certified, or an administrator, so that is literally everyone other than me. Pick a person, and I'm talking about them. Everyone other than me, their salary is tied to the negotiated agreements. So were something that I did not propose to happen and salaries were decreased, there is this notion that that needs to happen only to certain people. It's not how that works. It doesn't work the other way either. We don't only help someone at central office with a salary bump and not everyone else. There is a daily rate that is tied to every administrator's contract, and that includes the directors at central office, and that is how their salaries are calculated. So I haven't, it's again misinformation to say that this needs to happen to them, or you're going to put this on the backs of us and it's not going to happen. That's not how that works. And to talk about that is not only damaging because you're spreading misinformation, but it's also concerning that people feel very free to talk about something they don't totally understand. And so I would encourage you, if you are a member of, maybe even if you're not a member of the union, if you are someone to whom an agreement applies, you should definitely educate yourself about what is in that agreement. Read the fine print, it's a big document. And if you're not sure, because who's going to be well-versed in all 78 pages, right? Like, that's tough to do. If you're not well-versed, definitely encourage you to talk to your union leadership, and I can only hope that the union leadership knows the answers to those questions, because certain people in certain positions were sharing information that was not accurate about the agreements as well. So that is what I want to say about that. And then as far as my salary goes, yes, mine is not tied to anything that's collectively negotiated with the board and myself. I will say that despite the fact that my, changes in my salary are not typically contingent upon, or superintendent salaries typically aren't contingent upon changes to the union salaries. There is a provision in mine right now that says that raises do not happen unless raises happen for the other units. I was going to say something, but I'm going to withhold that information. It's personal to me. But the other element that I want to make to that is, I cannot imagine a world in which everyone else took a salary cut and I didn't immediately renegotiate the same salary cut. So not looking for a pat on the back, and I'm sure no one's impressed by that, but I'm a person of integrity, and I certainly wouldn't allow that to happen, despite the fact that that it doesn't work the other way for me. And as we saw with SB 231 funds and other, we have hard-to-fill positions that they get additional funding. There are people within our unions who get additional funds that others do not get, and so I'm not looking for any sympathy, but I want to make sure that that's clear because that keeps coming up. I'm sure it'll continue to come up, but those are important notes on salaries. And the other one that, man, people just keep saying it, and I'm not going to get way into it, but the phrase, we didn't just wake up with this problem, all it tells me is that you just woke up to what's been going on for the last 3 to 4 years. Changes have been implemented, efforts have been made. The things that are occurring around us are much more accelerated than you or I or anyone before us on this board has had to deal with. These are unprecedented changes to education, and it's not unique to Elko County. So as far as waking up, yes, definitely encourage waking up to the issue of education in our county, in our state, in America. These things are relevant everywhere, and I definitely would not look at a teacher and say, man, you've seen this kid who's been at a first grade reading level, or principal and say, this kid's been behind for the last 3 years. How come you haven't got them to where they ought to be, right? Because there's a lot of factors that go into eliminating and to closing gaps. And sometimes that works out great and other times it doesn't. And so the notion that nothing's been done, the notion that people have been just sitting around here collecting paychecks is offensive. And it's been abundantly clear in the last 4 months, no one really cares about how offensive they are. It's important that we not discredit the hard work that's being done by everyone. That includes our teachers, that includes our administrators, that includes central office staff. So a little humanity can go a long way to engaging with people well and to coming up with solutions together. So it's, I can't control what people say, but I can make sure to reiterate the hard work that's gone in and not allow people to, without answering for it, you're respectfully, you're wrong on those things for people who say those things. That's it from tonight's topics, and I just want to cover 3 things real quick to make sure, because despite how challenging it's been, I still have a whole nother job that has occurred over these last 6 weeks or so, or 8 weeks, and so I want to keep you updated on a few things. Attended my NAS meeting, and for those who care deeply about where I was when I attended that, I attended it from my office and participated from there, despite the fact that I was leading one of our priority groups for the INVEST document. You as the board, on an annual basis, have seen the INVEST document. We have 5 priorities. I just want to make sure you're clear on what those are, and this is what these represent, are what we're going to legislators with going to the next session as very important priorities for moving education forward in Nevada. One of those is at the end of next year, or maybe it's in 2 years, sometime soon, they have decided it's a great idea to go ahead and retain every kid who does not pass a reading test in grade 3. Anyone who's been in education for a long time, I'm going to back that up. It is widely researched and accepted that retention typically does not benefit students in the long run. So it is one of our positions that we oppose the mandatory retention of kids in grade 3 if they do not pass. There are other ways to address that. The topic of tonight's meeting and other meetings generally is one of our others, and that is fixing the funding formula. I'm not super optimistic, but I think there are at least minor tweaks that can be done that could help us. One of those being the one of the changes to the funding formula that plagues us not once a year, but 4 times a year, and that is the true ups at every attendance or enrollment check throughout the year. We go into a year with a certain number, and if that number declines, we have the same everything that we've contracted for the year, but they just take money away from us as the year goes on. And people who want to be critical of predicting that, I'm not sure how to predict how much money the state's going to take from us in October, and then again in January, and then again in March, and then again in June. We can try, but you can't. So there's that. We're trying to get some help there. There have been statewide and nationwide pervasive, frivolous and very damaging special education complaints, and miring down school districts in lawyers' fees, and it's very damaging to school districts and their budgets. And so having some guardrails there, and so that's something we've been talking with them about. Senate Bill 460 on the whole, it's all about accountability, but not really with a whole lot of support. And so there's a lot of cleanup language that we think needs to happen there, and so we're going to work with that. And then there is also a desire from the superintendent group as a whole to expand pre-K and have that funded appropriately for our schools across the state. So those are the 5 priorities. At some point in the near future, I will likely be approaching you again with a request to endorse those priorities, and I'll give a little presentation on that document. So that was discussed at our meeting. The other 2, we had a great mid-year report from Communities and Schools. If you, I can't remember the last time we did one. I feel like it was earlier this school year, but we typically try to have them do one every year. But really amazing work from our partners at CIS. You know, they have big plans for trying to do more, and they're also trying to get money from the state to be able to work with us to potentially expand to more locations within our school district. That does require school district contribution as well. So given budget scenarios, I'm not sure how feasible that is, but we'll be sure to keep you updated on that. But any chance I can get to thank Communities and Schools for the amazing work they do at all of our locations. And even ones where they don't have someone at a location, they still provide support to the other schools and to students who have those needs and who reach out for help. And then the last one, I meant to say it at our meeting last week, and I felt like a dodo for not saying it, but the same day we had our board meeting last week, I also got to read at Mountain View and for Reading Week, and with all the 100-year-old 2-year-olds, or second graders, I mean, and fourth graders that I read to. It was easily the best part of my week, and as I was sitting here thinking about it, it might still be the best part of my week. Just remembering it. It was wonderful. Extra bonus, 2 of my nephews were in the room where I was reading, and a bunch of kids I know from church, and super well behaved. It was a very enriching experience. I got to use my Spanish fluency as part of the book. A teacher thoughtfully selected a book for me that employed that, and I was able to work with the kids. And so it was a really fun experience. I loved it so much. And I always welcome, I know right now I'm not winning popularity contests, but I always welcome opportunities to engage with students, and I feel like I'm pretty good at engaging with students, and so any chance people want to offer to have me come to their classroom, even if you're a little miffed with me, I think there could still be some positivity there. So I always welcome the invitation, and thank you to those who think of me, and my apologies for when my schedule doesn't allow for it. But thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll stop there.
Thank you. All right, moving on to board matters, items 4.0 and items from board members. Does anyone have anything to add here?
I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
We have 2 options as a board. We can seek knowledge privately, away from the public, and present options and opinions that people are unaware of, or we can present questions in an open environment to try to learn and understand. So before the board members, individually or collectively, are castigated, please decide which of those two options you as the public would prefer we do. Please take the comments that we make in context. When you hear one snippet and that's all you run with, to Superintendent Anderson's point earlier, it causes damage. Please try to understand what is being said and why it's being said. I'm going to say it again. I stick my foot in my mouth often. If you think that I said something that is intentionally offensive, send me an email. It's mmccarty@ecsdnv.net. It's going to immediately bounce back with my cellular phone number. I do that for a reason. Call me. Talk to me. Don't blame these guys for something that I said. Along those lines, I want to make it very clear that I requested the declaration of financial emergency. That's not because I don't value our staff or that I'm unsympathetic to the realities of the economic impacts, but because 85% of our budget is comprised of labor and benefits. The reality is that we will not be able to make any financial adjustments to our budget without considering staffing levels. And as someone who's been in management for more than 30 years, I personally believe that it's generally more equitable for everyone to take a smaller hit than for a percentage to be eliminated completely. I also believe that there are ways to spread cuts across multiple tiers with varying percentages based on salary bands or collective bargaining units. To Dr. Josh's point, I'm not up for election this year, but I will be in 2 years. You're always welcome to challenge any of us. And if we're doing that bad of a job, you're welcome to recall us. I'm not trying to say this as a challenge. I'm saying we live in an amazing country with tremendous freedoms. We're doing the best we can with the information that we have, and it's a crappy job sometimes. I hope that you will recognize that we're doing what we can for the best of our students and for our community. Thank you. I'll get off my soapbox.
Go ahead, Trustee Neal.
Just a couple things. I know we've been here a long time. I too got to read at Mountain View last week, the day after our meeting, and got to read to third graders and then kindergarten, second and fourth graders. But the fun part was I got to read in my old classroom there at Mountain View. So I was telling the third graders, I'm like, I used to teach sixth grade right in this room. And they're like, you did? So it was a lot of fun. It was good to reminisce, and boy, just it looked so different. It was just very enjoyable. And I too appreciate being invited to those events. And I love to go to those. So that was a lot of fun. I also want to just say quickly, the district has been through budget woes before, and I was actually teaching when those happened. I can remember the pay scale being frozen. I remember having a class of 37 fifth graders, but we will get through it. And, you know, things did get better. I know it's easy for me to say now, but I have seen those kind of things happen, and it did get better. So hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel. I do have just a point of information that you touched on with the mandatory retention. We were just talking about that for items, informational items on the State Board of Education meeting for tomorrow. I think it's 2 years from now, actually. So maybe we can talk more about that. I am not a voting member on that, but I can certainly give my opinion on that, so we'll have to talk more about that. And based on information from that meeting, just I thought you might be interested in this. This is from the 2025 annual report by the Nevada Department of Education. The enrollment has declined 28,500 around the state since 2020. And I just thought that information was kind of a wow factor. And based on that, I think we really need to look at why people are leaving our district and not just doing a QR code or a survey or something. We need to actually talk to these people so that they know we are listening to what is going on. And even if it's a community meeting and there's 2 people there, it's a start, and I really think we need to have that contact, and maybe you've started that, but based on what I know, that hasn't really been done. We actually need to talk to them. And same with the budget. I think either you, the CFO, both of you, I think we need to have community budget meetings on occasion for the public to attend, just because we've seen a lot, or we've heard a lot of questions about the budget, so it tells me the public isn't understanding it either. And it's complicated. It's more than just your home budget. It's very different. And maybe that would help with some of the miscommunication or understanding of the budget of how come you don't just do this? How come you have this money in capital projects or whatever? I think that would be important for us we really need to start reaching out to the community more. And I will get off my soapbox.
Anyone else?
I've got something I'd like
Go
to read.
ahead.
I also prepared this. I came prepared tonight. And I feel like it's important after comments that were made. I think it's even more important now that I read it. I would like to take a moment to address some of the comments that have been made about district leadership. I want to stand up for the people currently serving in those roles. Anyone who's been paying attention to our district over the past several years knows we have had a revolving door of superintendents and CFOs, and our school board itself is still relatively new. Anyone who has served on a school board knows it takes time to truly get your feet under you. This is an enormous amount of information there is an enormous amount of information to learn, and at times it can feel like drinking from a fire hose. At the same time, much of our leadership team is also relatively new. Many of these changes have happened while the state has been implementing a completely new funding formula for schools, which has created serious challenges for districts across Nevada. The financial challenges we are facing are not unique to our district. Many districts across the state are in similar situations. Some are already in crisis, and others may find themselves there within the next year. I believe it's important for our community to understand that the people working in our district office and at our schools care deeply about this district, our students, and our staff. These are not easy decisions, and I know many people are losing sleep trying to find the best path forward. Solving this problem will not happen by pointing fingers. It will require all of us to rally together, support one another, and advocate at the state level to make it clear that the current funding formula is not working. We also have to be honest about the reality of the situation. Cuts will have to be made. So far, nearly every time a potential area for savings is discussed, we hear that cannot be cut. But if every area is off the table, it becomes impossible to solve the problem. What will help most moving forward is for all of us to come to the table with ideas, solutions, and a willingness to work together. Offering constructive suggestions, support, and appreciation for the difficult work that is being done will move us forward much more effectively than criticism alone. This is a challenging moment for our district, but I truly believe that if we focus on solutions and work together, we can get through it and come out stronger on the other side. I also want to just read something that I caught at the end of an email that was sent in from a teacher. She says, "No matter what happens, I hope Flagview is remembered not just as a line on a budget sheet, but as a school full of people who care deeply about children and the work we do for them. Thank you again for listening to our school community." And I just want to say that I see you Flagview teachers. You guys are amazing. I've had kids, 3 boys already that have gone through Flagview and had really amazing teachers and support at that school. And I know that you guys are professional and that wherever you end up, you'll do a great job. And I just want to thank you and tell you that I appreciate everything that you've done for our district and for our students.
Thank you. Any
I mean, I'll go. I know that Teresa wants to go last, so.
I'm going last.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I know that Teresa wants to go second to last before El Presidente, so. Just a couple things. I'm gonna come across, I know how I come across. I totally do. And the thing is I'm not trying to be, it's not trying to be a personal attack, just like I've said numerous times. I analyze what I have in front of me, and I make decisions based on that. And that analysis is what you guys send in. It's the emails we get. It's the stopping at the grocery stores. It's the stopping in the middle of my practice when I have 20 people waiting for me out in the waiting room. It's all of it. It's my wife getting stopped now. So, because, we're empty nesters, so we have all the time in the world. So I understand the way that I come across, but I want everyone to understand something. I grew up here, right? So I went to Spring Creek Elementary. I went to Grammar. I went to Mountain View the first year, 3rd grade. Okay. I went 3rd through 6th there. I went to Elko Junior High School. Okay. I went to Elko High School. I went to GBC. This is my community. So when I say things like I'm putting time and effort into it, I mean it. When I say it hurts, it does hurt. Like, I don't want to see anybody. When we moved here, I knew of teachers that were waiting for a position because everything was full and eventually left because they couldn't find. So I know when we have overabundance of folks here, and I know when we don't. And so I just wanted to take a couple seconds to say, listen, I get it. I appreciate that you guys are fighting for what you believe in, but it's not like I'm not coming at you. I'm trying to make the best of the information that we have. So the other side is, I've had a couple folks come at me. Some of the emails that I've had have been very inappropriate. And if you would like to come do this, I challenge you to come do it. Now, my position isn't open until I believe yours is. So you got a couple years, you're stuck with me, unless you do something super special. But at the same time, I challenge you to come up here because this is both rewarding and challenging, and sometimes just not fun. So the last thing I want to say is community and schools. My office partners with the community and schools. We collected just under 1,000 clothing items, and those will go to them, I believe, tomorrow, and they will be distributed across the district. So another successful collection drive. And every time they come in and we give it to them, they're always so appreciative. And they let us know later that we have that going on. So I believe, with that, I'll rest.
Just a couple of items. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up very shortly. Go be part of your child's education. Go participate in the parent-teacher conference. Go hear from your teachers how your students are doing, what they can improve on. Engage in what you can do as a parent or a guardian to help your students succeed. I had the opportunity to spend a day during reading week at Sage as a substitute, and it was awesome. It's so fun to engage with children in a variety of ways, and reading is one of them. And we got to read a nonfiction book together where it was about a horse, and it was just fun. And learning can be so fun. This is not so fun sometimes, but the real focus we need to have is on students. What can we do for students? How can we make our district better? Even when we're going through difficult things, how do we as the adults in this district continue to do good things for kids? And I know there are lots of adults in this district working really hard to do good things for kids. And I have said this a lot of times, but these adults up here sitting next to me put in so much heart and soul into trying to make the best decisions with the information we have. And I'm really proud to work with everyone up here. And I will say that of everyone here, everybody in the district, we have great people, and we will continue to do good things. We will make it through these hard things together. Just like Susan said, this is not the first time Elko County School District has had budget issues. It will not be the last. I'm not predicting the future. That's just a trend in education. But continue as the adults in our community to look at what we can do to make education better for our kids, regardless of what is thrown at us. Thank you.
Well, I guess it's my turn. I received a lot of emails too. Some were not really nice, and to say I was I'm here not knowing, well, so I'm getting into it. I have 2 daughters with special needs, and I know we don't have to talk about personal stuff, but that I said, well, they're not doing enough. I'm gonna go there and try to do more and do better. And now that I'm here, I see all this, and really, we're doing the best we can. And it's not like there's other options and better things that we can do, or we just wasting money. No. And I was one of those parents thinking that I can do better if I'm there. And that's why I'm here. And say thank you to all of us, including me. I feel like I put a lot of hours into this. I read, I learn. My first language is Spanish, so I translate everything, and there's a lot of words that I don't understand, and I have to go and look for those words and what they mean. And then I work really hard to make the best decisions that I can. And I know everyone else here is doing the same thing. And I don't want to feel like I just have to defend myself for what I'm doing, for the decisions that we're taking. We have to work together. We're a community. There are teachers, staff members, parents, everyone. We have to work together. We can make this work, but we have to work together. And just, I don't appreciate those memes, those mean emails. Just gonna say that. And another fun thing, I don't know, they talk about, I wasn't here at the last meeting. We went to Carling last month. They have a new playground. It's awesome. Kids were having so much fun. And we went there to deliver a STARS Award. Every month we get 3 awards for 3 amazing teachers. And we have a lot of nominations that it's hard to decide which teacher is gonna get it the next month. And it's just, this is not about if we're doing something bad. We have amazing teachers, amazing staff. It's just the budget. It's a reality. We don't have the budget. And that's it. And thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start out by thanking the board here. This has been a rough evening. In fact, I would dare say in my tenure, 4+ years, this is the roughest one I've ever had. No matter what we do, somebody's disappointed. I looked at a couple things on this. I've been on the fence the whole way, but when it comes down to it, I am also thankful for the professionals that we work with here. And I trust my superintendent. He made a recommendation. He's backed it up with facts and figures. He answered the questions that I had to my satisfaction. And all things being equal, if that's the recommendation coming, that's the one I'm going to take. And that's where my vote lies. I think that Trustee Ballard, Trustee McCarty had very good points there too. And those are definitely things that we should be looking at. I like what you pointed out, Superintendent Anderson, that this action was only to move 5th grade. So while not recommended, there are other things out there. And that goes to the next thing I want to say is the things that we say up here get taken out of context so many times. And I'm going to be honest, that public comment today really bothered me. That's come up a couple times with what I allegedly said a few meetings ago. That was in no way meant to imply that the teachers don't show up. That's ridiculous to assert that. And I'm going to say that out loud because you folks work very, very hard. My comments were construed as, in my career as a school board member, typically when there's an issue, the people that show up are the ones that are issue. Otherwise, it's crickets. And what the rest of the context of that statement was to say it's time for everybody to show up right now and reach out to our elected officials that help us determine our budgets. That's what my comment was about, not about talking about teachers. And I'm just gonna be straight, I didn't appreciate that at all.
I didn't appreciate it either.
Yeah.
I was here at that meeting.
Yeah, anyway. That being said, thanks for everybody that came out. I gotta tell you, this is one of the hardest things I've dealt with here, if not the hardest. I pray going forward that we can figure out a way to mitigate these problems that we're having. I have faith in our leadership, and I'm going to close with that. Moving on to item 5.01, input from the public. Anybody like to make public comment?
I wasn't going to talk about this until I kept hearing the word trend come up. That we all need to just look at the trend in education and where it's going and how we all need to get ready for it. So let's talk about that trend. For over 40 years now, we have seen teachers and students set up in a system designed to fail them both. For at least 15 years, I've been speaking about the attack on public schools due to those who root for the demise of public schools in favor of privatizing the system. Their agenda is one that I don't have the adequate time to lay out in 3 minutes allotted. Having said that, the basic playbook to destroy public schools has always been attack the teachers while starving the school of funding. The attacks on schools have been nonstop. Teachers are accused of failing to teach kids anything while at the same time filling their minds with dangerous ideology. That's literally impossible to do. You add to this, the starving of the funding always results in making teachers who are already undermined and under attack do more with less. Instead of people saying we just need to accept the trend the education is going, I would hope that people, especially on the board and the state and that are served by the public schools, do more to advocate for the increased funding and staff that are needed in order for the system to be successful. Letting public education isn't a trend, it's a choice. Letting public education fail isn't a trend, it's a choice. When the funding formula was adjusted last year, a report was issued that said the approximately $9,800 per student fell nearly $5,000 short of what was needed to keep our schools operating effectively and our students achieving. So as I said, letting our schools fail is a choice. All of us, from board members to school staff at all levels of the community, need to stand up to the powers that hold the purse and demand that our schools be fully funded and fully staffed, or sit back and blame the trend, rather than sit back and blame the trend and allow the cornerstone of a free and democratic system fail. And if you want to predict what the future holds for your kids when public education is taken away, all one has to do is know their history.
Thank you. Next. All right, please state your name.
Hi, I'm Tracy Collier-Williams, and I was just coming up to ask some clarity after last week's board meeting. Last week, you guys were voting on the longevity of the ARL students and substitutes in their degree programs versus when it comes time to possibilities of cutting staff for the reduction in force. And so clarity, we would like to know as staff members that it might affect is, would you cut the ARL students first, or would you cut staff members who already have their licenses but may have just been hired this last year? Because some of the ARL students may have already held their position and were hired. This is their second year teaching, but they don't fully have a license yet because they're going through the program. But technically, this is their second year in the district, holding a teaching position. So staff would like to know, where are you going to determine who has seniority over who? Second, I would like to comment that at least at Elko High School this week, we have massively been short on substitute teachers. I have personally been pulled out of classes that I need to be teaching in and supporting because we don't have subs this week. Why don't we have subs? Because their pay got cut and now they're looking for additional jobs from the votes and the talks. They're looking for somewhere else to go. And they're very upset about that. And so this week, we have not had people coming in to cover the positions. And so therefore, in classes that I co-teach in with an additional teacher, Some I'm certified to teach by myself, some I'm not certified to teach by myself. And it's been very difficult because I've had to work with other teachers who are covering on their prep, but okay. I was like, it cut off. Are covering on their prep when that's not their subject area of expertise. But I'm in that classroom every single period, and we may or may not even have somebody to cover that class. And so it's been extremely, extremely difficult this week at the high school because of that, because we just don't have the bodies to cover it. As far as it comes for insurance, myself, I'm a disabled veteran, so I don't cover myself with the insurance. The insurance I draw from the district is that I draw it for my family. I have to cover my family with insurance because the VA does not cover my family. And filling needs, we have questions about that as a staff. When it comes from the 13 people resigning or retiring, I know 3 of those are from the high school at Elko, but we don't necessarily know where the other 10 are, and then the other critical needs and things. So we just like clarification.
Thank you. I'll just, if I can just jump in there, just send me your questions and we'll see what we can do about answering them.
Thank you.
Hello, Holland Wines for the record. I want to start by just saying thank you to all of you because public service matters a lot. And I know this isn't easy. My week got away from me, so I did not come prepared tonight. I wasn't going to say a word, but I have already put a survey out to see, well, number one, I have some credibility with the people who are pulling their kids out of schools. A lot of these people trust me. And as far as I'm concerned, we can't stop the bleeding if we don't know where it's coming from. So I took the initiative to put the survey out. We have at least 300 people who have filled it out so far. That was only circulated once. So I think that there's a lot more people that we could do that from. I know that a lot of people said that your QR code stated something about a free trial ending or something, so they couldn't get into your QR code. I'm happy to print or email and do all of that and get all of that information to you. And I think all but one response from a disgruntled admin. It was very interesting to read what people are going through and read what they're saying. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm getting that to you guys. I'll probably circulate it again, and maybe I can come back to you with that next week. Also, Flagview, my homeschool families wrote cards for all of the staff at Flagview a little over a week ago, but my week got away from me. So if we could come and bring those up tomorrow, that would be really great. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Rayner, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I want to say thank you to the board. You guys do not have an easy job. But I want to ask the question, how do we get to the legislature and change how it's funded? I know you put out the list. I've written to every one of those people, including the governor. No one has responded. Most of them don't even know about the way education is funded. They got to find out. If we've got 7 out of 17 counties that are looking at financial disaster, somebody has to change the funding formula, and not next week, this legislature.
Thank you. Any further public comment? All right, hearing none, we're going to move to 6.01, adjournment of the meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.